This podcast is a member of the Voices of Wrestling Podcasting Network. Visit voicesofwrestling.com to hear the rest of our great podcasts, as well as show reviews, columns, opinions, and updates across the world of wrestling.
Welcome everybody to Wrestling Omakase, Take 3. This is our annual year-end award episode, one of my favorite episodes of the year. We got a ton of guests on here to go through all the best and worst stuff from 2020. A truly terrible year that still had lots of great professional wrestling and lots of bad professional wrestling, and we're going to get into all of it here today. So let's start out here by introducing a current, not former. No one's going to get that joke, but Suit will get it. A current member of Voices of Wrestling, a Voices of Wrestling guest on Wrestling Omakase many times. I think you've been on this year-end award episode too before, right, Suit? I believe so.
I think either once or twice.
Yeah.
I can't remember if last year was the one where my computer... No, that was the draft where my computer died.
Yeah, there's a lot of that going
around.
Japan
draft. Yeah. I should be good today. Fully charged.
But welcome back to the show, Suit.
Thank
great
you.
to have you here as always. Also back here, not a Voices of Wrestling member, but a great guy nonetheless, and another repeat guest from year-end awards prior, Mr. Mongo _ Ebooks. Hi, Mongo.
How's it going?
Good.
I'm excited to do this again.
You get your bow every year by being on the year-end award episode.
And I'm never on another episode.
It works for you every year, so why stop now? But thanks for coming back on, Mr. Mongo. Also back from the One Wrestling Podcast, TJ. How's it going, TJ?
Pretty good. What's up, John? Glad to be back for I think it's like my third year in a row of doing this, at least my second year in a row. So glad to be back for the year-end awards.
Thanks for coming back. And another Voice of Wrestling contributor, someone making his year-end award debut, where it's like 7 a.m. where he is. Hi, Harley.
Hey, how you going? I'm looking forward to breaking my award show virginity as I broke my Omakase virginity about 3 months ago.
Yeah, you were on, one of the G1 episodes,
I think
right?
the first G1. G1, yeah.
Yeah, so obviously they got you a ballot, and now here you are to do the year-end award episodes at the crack of dawn. So there you go.
Yes, exactly right.
But thanks for coming on. And finally, another Voices of Wrestling contributor. I think you've done these year-end award episodes before, but you could correct me if I'm wrong. It's Gerard. Hi, Gerard.
Hi, John. I think I may have been on a year-end awards, but I think I was on a half-year awards thing.
Oh, yeah.
Anyway, this is much nicer to do than yelling at my computer, which I've done for the last 40 minutes. So thanks for having me.
Yeah, you're welcome. So yes, we're here today to go through all of our year-end awards. So if you've never listened to a year-end award episode, it's pretty simple. Basically, all the Omakase guests during the calendar year, which obviously in this case was 2020, they all get a Omakase year-end award ballot. They're invited to fill it out. It's very similar categories to the Wrestling Observer Awards, except a little bit scaled down. So, less categories. I cut a lot of the fat, I think, just way less categories overall. But, all the big ones, we have some Category B ones where you make one choice each, which a lot of those are worst categories. And then Category A, which is first, second, and third, where first place gets 5 points, second place gets 3 points, and third place gets 2 points. And then we compile those picks and come up with the overall winners. So all the people on here today did an Omakase ballot, so they're going to reveal their own picks. I'm going to reveal my picks, and then I will give you the winners. Now, new for this year, because of course we have the Wrestling Omakase Patreon, where you can sign up for $5 a month at patreon.com/Wrestling Omakase. This year, Omakase patrons also got their own ballot. So Omakase patrons were able to fill out the exact same awards, but I kept the results separately. So we have results from the guests, and we have results from the patrons. So I will give both of those out at the end, the top 3 for both. Sometimes they're very similar, and sometimes they're very different. So I like seeing how different they were and how similar they were was kind of entertaining. So as I compiled them, especially. So yeah, that's something we're gonna go over. I will be sure to make sure I mention which is the patron awards and which is the guest awards. But yeah, that's new for this year. Speaking of the Omakase Patreon, I won't go through the whole big spiel because we got a lot to cover. But what I will say is if you're listening to this on Sunday, January 3rd, and you want to hear post-show coverage live on YouTube for both nights of Wrestle Kingdom, the only way you can do that this year, we did it last year for everybody, but this year it will be for patrons only. So go sign up now at patreon.com/Wrestling Omakase. I'll have Chris Samsa on there from Sport of Pro Wrestling. John Hernandez from VOW is going to be on there. I think one more person too, which I think that might be it. Anyway, the point is, John and Chris, maybe one more person, but it's not 100% confirmed. But definitely the 3 of us will be on there to break down Wrestle Kingdom 15 at the end of each night, live on YouTube. If you're listening to this as a free feed person, you will get to hear both shows eventually. We'll combine them into one show like we did last year on the free feed, but it won't be until Saturday. So if you want to hear our thoughts right after the show's end, the only way to do that is to sign up for the Patreon at patreon.com/Wrestling Omakase, and you will get the YouTube link off of there immediately after the show's end. So we'll be streaming live on there for you to listen to. Okay. Let's get right into these awards. We're going to start out here with the worst weekly TV show. So when we do these awards, I always like to start with the worst awards and get them out of the way first, and then work our way up to the best awards. So worst weekly TV show, not a hard category for me personally. I gave it to WWE Raw. Just a horrendous television program on so many levels, and I try to tell everybody to be brief on these worst awards. I will try not to defy my advice. But what I will say is, I did not watch Raw every week. I have to say that first of all. I don't think most of the people who voted this watch it every week. But like every time I turned it on, it was quite possibly more horrible than the last time I turned it on. And just like, I don't know. I've talked a lot about, there was this one segment that I even saw people praise with Randy Orton and Drew McIntyre. Like, it looked like two like terrible play actors and like a Shakespeare in the Park fucking skit, just like reciting monologues at each other. I could not believe how terrible it was. And that's what they seem to lean into, these really terrible like monologues during those empty arena performance center shows. And then they went to the Thunderdome and it became like actually unwatchable to me. Not like the joke way people say it, but like it hurts my eyes to watch that. Like it really like the screens and the lights and everything going off. It is actually unwatchable to me. So yeah, Monday Night Raw, terrible television show. That was my vote. What'd you give a worst weekly TV show to, Suit?
Yeah, I can't argue with that. Monday Night Raw, the flagship. Terrible.
Mongo?
Even though I have not actually watched Raw this year, I've seen enough videos on YouTube and enough Raw Undergrounds and Fiend sketches that my vote was for Monday Night Raw.
TJ?
No surprise, my vote was also for Raw, but I think I've watched less than a dozen episodes of WWE TV this year, so mostly just what I see online. So yeah, just Raw, I guess.
Harley?
Without watching a second of it, I voted for Raw.
Okay. Any particular reason?
Again, the clips online. I could have honestly voted for any WWE show, but I just thought from everyone complaining in the Slack, from watching the clips, it just looks completely irredeemable.
There you go. And Gerard, I think you make it a clean sweep here, but I could be wrong.
Yeah, I also voted for Raw, and I submitted my ballot before Alexa Bliss dumped gasoline all over herself.
That was the most bizarre fucking shit of all time, probably. So Raw, clean sweep here with our guests on the line, and it also, of course, won the award for the third straight year. This category started back in 2018, so we did not have this category in the first one in 2017. Raw takes first place with 25 votes. NXT second place with 4 votes. Impact and SmackDown tie for third with 2 votes each. The only other shows that got even a single vote were New Japan Strong and Being the Elite. Both got 1 vote each. Over on the Omakase Patreon, really no difference at all. 22 votes for Raw, 3 for SmackDown. Nothing else got more than 1 vote. So Raw, quite terrible, and it does sweep the awards again. Okay, so now we get to Worst Major Show, which there should be more different votes here. So I did not watch any WWE major shows this year after February. I have to say that first of all before I announce my vote. And I did not think the Royal Rumble or the Elimination Chamber were that terrible. But I completely gave up on their pay-per-views once they went empty arena. I never watched WrestleMania or anything. Just has no appeal to me to watch WWE without the entire entertainment value of WWE is like seeing how the crowds will reject these shows, and obviously that goes away. So what I voted the worst major show of the year was AEW All Out, September 5th in Jacksonville. I thought AEW's pay-per-views this year were very up or down for the most part. I liked Full Gear was good, Double or Nothing was okay, Revolution was good, but All Out I just thought was a pretty terrible show. Other than the Moxley MJF main event was really good, and that was the only redeeming thing on the show. The rest of the show I thought was quite terrible. So my vote for worst major show, again with the caveat that I didn't see any of these other WWE shows that I'm sure were much worse, was AEW All Out. What do you have here for worst major show suit? Worst major show suit.
My vote for worst major show of the year is WWE Money in the Bank on May 10th. I'll just run down this card real quick. A nothing 4-way tag team title match with the New Day, the Forgotten Sons, Morrison and Miz, and Lucha House Party. Bobby Lashley beating R-Truth in 2 minutes. Tamina getting a pay-per-view women's title shot. Braun Strowman beating Bray Wyatt. Not the Fiend, the Mr. Rogers one. Drew McIntyre defeating Seth Rollins for the WWE title. And then the Money in the Bank ladder matches, which I may have something to say about those later. Oh, no, I don't. I picked something else for worst match of the year. Yeah, these sucked.
Yeah, we had on my DDT year in review episode, Jamie from Dramatic DDT came on, and he mentioned that the Money in the Bank matches were like the single worst attempt at doing a DDT style of match. The DDT street fight style of match that he'd ever seen. And yeah, I didn't watch it, so I can't comment, but they do sound like they were quite terrible.
I couldn't make it the whole way through. I tried watching it just so I could have a legit view of what could be the worst match of the year. It's like the first wrestling match I couldn't watch all the way through because it's not a wrestling match. It's just a really bad comedy sketch.
And when I saw the Daniel Bryan let me back out of here, boss thing, and yeah, that's I think the only thing I saw from it. Isn't that the thing where they threw the guy off the roof and he lived somehow too?
Rey Mysterio and Aleister Black, and they teamed the next night on Raw.
Awesome. Mongo, what do you have for worst major show?
Even though I did not watch the vast majority of this show, I voted for the horror show at Extreme Rules. Just based on the video of Seth Rollins gouging out Rey Mysterio, or I guess pulling out Rey Mysterio's eye with the stairs, whatever the hell they did with that incredibly awful looking fake eye. And then the incredible audio and video of the Bray Wyatt versus Braun Strowman swamp fight. I mean, of the AEW shows I watched this year, I mean, I didn't hate any of them. CMLL had a boring first show back from COVID, but none of them gave me the kind of visceral hatred of what I was watching than the video of that swamp fight. So Yeah, the little I've seen of the horror show at Extreme Rules was worse than any of the kind of lame GCW or CMLL shows I did happen to see this year.
Oh, there you go. TJ, worst major show?
Mine was like you, All Out from September 5th. This is a bad weekend for me in general, so I was kind of in a bad mood watching the show, but it was just so long for no reason. I think that was like 4.5 hours long, and usually I can at least get one or two things out of AEW pay-per-views that I can sink my teeth into, but this had absolutely nothing for me, really. Like, the Young Bucks versus Jungle Express, or Jurassic Express, like, the best match of the night, I think, and I thought it was just good. MJF and Mox was fine, and everything else was mostly bad, and Matt Hardy almost died, so that wasn't good.
Yeah, I forgot about that. Yeah.
I just did not like the show at all, so yeah, that's my pick.
Harley, what do you have here for a worst major show?
I, like Suit, also went Money in the Bank. In April, when I first went into lockdown, or Australia first went into lockdown, I bought the network back to try and, watch some old wrestling from my childhood. And in my free trial thing, I think Money in the Bank came in that period, and I've never been more regretful in my life that I spent watching that pay-per-view. That it was, again, as Suit said, it's just repeating points, but it's just the most cringy attempt at comedy in those Money in the Bank matches. I couldn't, it's just not wrestling. I really hate this company.
Gerard, what did you have here for worst major show?
I also went the horror show at Extreme Rules. I had watched, I think, every WWE pay-per-view up to that point this year, and then I stopped after seeing that. I actually totally forgot about the whole eyeball thing that Mongo brought up, and I just voted for it basically for that whole swamp stuff and like Braun Strowman getting eaten by a gator.
Okay, so the worst major show vote for the guests and the patrons, actually. Oh, no, the patrons too. Was a show nobody voted for here. It was WWE WrestleMania 36 Night 2, March 26 in Orlando. That got 7 votes. Second place was a show that we mentioned repeatedly. Horror Show at Extreme Rules, Orlando, got 5 votes. AEW All Out got in third place at 4 votes. Then WrestleMania 36 Night 1 in fourth place with 3 votes. And by the way, I had so many people vote just WrestleMania without specifying a night that I had to go track them down to pick a night. I think all 10 of them probably did that. But this is what they ended up with. 7 pick Night 2 and 3 pick Night 1. The honorable mentions, Money in the Bank got 2 votes, so both the people on here, I guess. And then the only other non-WWE show to get more than 1 vote was the All Japan Champion Carnival Night 5, which would have been the block finals on September 26th at Odawara. That got 2 votes. The patrons, very similar, except they remembered about Riyadh season, which apparently the guests forgot about, because they have a tie for first here. WrestleMania 36 Night 2, 5 votes. WWE Super Showdown from Saudi Arabia, which can't believe that actually happened in 2020. February 27th in Riyadh, that got 5 votes as well. And then Horror Show at Extreme Rules got 4 votes. So WWE's 4th straight year winning worst major show. Way to go, guys. Worst promotion, another category they'll probably do very, very good in. What do you have? I guess I'll go first. I voted for WWE. I mean, just, I don't really think there's any competition for this award, to the point where I'm actually considering banning them from this category next year and like naming it the World Wrestling Entertainment Memorial Worst Promotion Award, because this is the 4th straight year they won. I guess not to spoil things. It's just like there's really no point voting for anybody else. I mean, they put on the worst shows. They have the worst policies in every single aspect you could think of. They had nonstop COVID outbreaks. I mean, no matter what you look at it, no matter what way you look at it, they are the worst promotion. I don't think there's any competition. So it's WWE again. I voted them worst promotion. What do you have? What did you vote, Soon? Why was it WWE?
The Vince McMahon hopefully Memorial Worst Promotion of the Year award goes to WWE. This is the year they fully delved into a parody of pro wrestling.
Yeah, very, very, very well stated. Mongo?
I voted for WWE like I'm sure everyone else did. I have to particularly point out the Raw Underground as an incredible example of just putting on the worst possible television that actually made me want to watch clips of it, because usually they're just boring. Like, the promos are so boring. Roman Reigns talking to Jey Uso in the Hell in the Cell is so boring. But Raw Underground was just such an incredible, bad cacophony of bullshit that I don't know if I watched all of them, but I watched most of them, and I guess it's better than their usual brand of boring.
It was really funny bad, that is true. Just, I mean, unwatchable because of all the camera cuts, but, like, yeah, it was something. That's for sure. TJ, worst promotion. TJ, worst promotion. Think you're on mute, buddy.
Yeah, sorry. Yeah, I'm here. I did not pick WWE, even though I do agree WWE was the worst promotion this year. I just don't care enough about it that it was actually bad. So I voted for All Japan because they pissed me off enough this year, mostly with Enfon's booking in general, but I think their back half of the year was particularly bad. Like, basically, since fans came back, they've been pretty bad in 2020. Kind of looking up in 2021, I think, after these first two Corkins. But, yeah, I voted for All Japan just because they annoyed me more than WWE did this year.
Well, that's... You won't be surprised by who finished second, I guess. I think at some point I told people how bad... Like, WWE had, like... was like 20 for 20 on worst promotion votes or something. And I think at some point I told so many people that they were running away with it that people started voting for other promotions. So we'll get into the non-WWE votes eventually. Harley, who'd you vote for here for worst promotion?
I voted for WWE. I felt kind of weird about this one because they're not really a wrestling promotion. They're just a PR company that does wrestling. It'd be kind of like if a bank started promoting a circus. But yeah, I thought I couldn't really vote for anything else but WWE.
Gerard, who'd you vote for?
I voted for WWE, and since so much has been said, I'll just bring up one other aspect that they were absolutely atrocious at, is just totally misusing talent and blowing all sorts of talent that's supposed to be, like, can't miss, like what happened with Rhea Ripley and everything like that. So that alone, I think, deserves them being worst.
It is bizarre. Like, the Rhea Ripley one is the one where it's like, I don't even understand why you dropped the ball on her. It's like she's not even some indie geek or anything. She's everything you'd think they would want in a female wrestler, and they just like, we can't even push her correctly. I was like, okay.
The Braun Strowman problem.
Yeah, that's true. That's true too. I mean, they just don't know how to do this anymore. That's all it comes down to. So yes, WWE did win worst promotion overwhelmingly. 26 people voted for them. Second place, All Japan Pro Wrestling got 5 votes. So that is actually not as bad as last year's second place. ROH got 7, but definitely not a good year for All Japan. And then I'll just list off all the promotions that got 1 vote. There were a bunch of other ones. AEW got 1 vote. ICW NHB, I don't even know what that is, got 1 vote. CMLL got a vote. GCW, Sendai Girls, Gato Move, Stardom, and Impact. If you're thinking who the Gato Move, he put down Gato Move, Choco Pro. If you're thinking who that is, you're probably right. I would just say that, who the Gato Move voter was. As far as the Omakase Patreon, very similar. 28 people voted for WWE. 2 people voted for All Japan. Those are the only promotions to get more than 1 vote. Okay, we go over now to Worst Feud, which was a far closer category, still very WWE dominated. I went back and forth on this one. I was thinking originally MJF versus Jon Moxley, because I thought that feud with all those fucking, that stupid fucking campaign bullshit was just so horrible every time I saw it. But at the end of the day, I did really like the match they had it all out. So a really bad feud that culminates in a really good match, like, I won 4 stars on that match. I can't give worst feud. So I changed my vote to Bray Wyatt versus Braun Strowman, which I just thought was horrendous from start to finish. And, I didn't see the actual matches, but all the segments I saw were, actually, no, I watched the SummerSlam match, which was horrible. Just one of the worst matches I've seen all year. And yeah, I mean, all that fucking cinematic universe bullshit and everything else, just horrible segments every week. It's just a horrible, horrible feud. So that's what I voted for, Bray Wyatt versus Braun Strowman from WWE. Go ahead, Suit. What did you vote for worst feud?
I can't blame you for almost going Moxley MJF, because that should have been better. but again, the match was really good. I did the same thing. I voted Strowman Wyatt. Yeah, just terrible, terrible, terrible. And I was never so happy to see Roman Reigns in my life than at the end of that SummerSlam match.
Mongo, what did you vote for worst feud?
I originally was going to vote for the Randy Orton Bray Wyatt feud because of where it is right now, and I think I'd written it down, and then I remembered that the Seth Rollins Rey Mysterio feud might still be going on to this very day. It started with a feud to gouge out someone's eye, and then it became a bizarre angle about Buddy Murphy dating Ray's 19-year-old daughter, and I know it was still going on in November. I have not given any attention to SmackDown in the last month to see if it's still going on, but I'd have to say that feud lasting for 6 months. I mean, as bad as other things were in like short bursts, that feud that's an incredible feud.
TJ, what did you vote down for worst feud?
I did actually vote for MJF versus Jon Moxley because, well, my actual vote was every MJF feud, but if I had to pick one, it's this one because whoever thought doing a political campaign bullshit during the 2020 election, being a smart idea, was just very wrong, I'd say the least, and I didn't enjoy the match as much as you do, or you did. So match was fine, and the feud sucked, so that was my vote.
Harley, what do you have here for worst feud?
I just put up all the WWE feuds on a wall and threw a dart at them, and that one landed on Bray Wyatt versus Braun Strowman.
There you go. Gerard, what did you put for worst feud?
Bray Wyatt versus Braun Strowman. I still can't get over that swamp match, especially with the whole Alexa Bliss ghost thing in it.
There you go. Okay, so the results, not surprising, I guess, given what everybody here said. Bray Wyatt versus Braun Strowman is the winner with 7 votes. A close second place, Tetsuya Naito versus Evil from New Japan with 6 votes. It's the only feud in the worst feud category that will show up again in the best feud category, so very divisive. Then we have third place, The Fiend Bray Wyatt versus Randy Orton, 4 votes. And tied for fourth, Okada versus Yujiro, and Jericho versus Orange Cassidy, both 3 votes. Your honorable mentions, MJF versus Moxley, which we talked about as well, and Young Bucks versus FTR, both got 2 votes. Similar results in the Patreon, except one of these feuds jumped up a bit. Wyatt versus Strowman won with 8 votes. Naito versus Evil and Okada versus Yujiro tied for second, both with 6 votes. So there's your worst feud results. Okay, the worst match of the year. This is, of course, obviously just the absolute worst match that took place in 2020. We might hear a bunch of different picks here, maybe, because 21 different matches got at least 1 vote, and a crazy 9 different matches got at least 2 votes. Just kind of crazy, again, in a category that a lot of people skip, too. Like, people, a lot of people don't like to give their votes for any of the worst categories. I voted for a weird one that nobody else but me voted for, but it was the worst match I can remember seeing this year, which was a tag team match on an episode of Dynamite. Kip Sabian and Jimmy Havoc versus SCU, Kazarian, and Scorpio Sky from May 27th. I just thought Kip Sabian and Jimmy Havoc did possibly the worst selling in this match I've ever seen in a major league professional wrestling match. And the fact that it was both of them doing it, not just one of them, it just really stood out to me that, I don't know, Kip Sabian appeared to think that pro wrestling selling should mean look like I'm really constipated, and Jimmy Havoc also seemed to go to that school of constipation as selling. So just really, really horrible, and just it was like a 10-minute tag, but that match stood out to me in my brain when it came to the end of the year. And again, I didn't see a lot of these cinematic bullshit WWE stuff, so this was the one that stood out to me as the worst match I saw in 2020. Give me your pick for worst match, Suit.
One final beat. Johnny Gargano versus Tommaso Ciampa. It was a parody of the NXT main event style that eventually became the NXT main event style. And then it introduced Karrion Kross, who sucks too.
There you go. Mongo, what's your pick for worst match of the year?
I voted for the Jey Uso versus Roman Reigns Hell in a Cell match. As I've said, I don't watch WWE, but I saw so many tweets of, has this match started? Blah, 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 things like that I'm like, I need to see what in the hell this is. and it was Roman Reigns talking to Jey Uso, acting, and then like people like Ryan Satin and others, just other people like, oh wow, Roman Reigns is such a great actor. This is incredible stuff, and it was like a 40-minute match that's almost all just bad acting and no action, and it was an I Quit match too. It was one of the most painful things I have sat through. I can't believe I sat through what must have been 30 minutes of it. Easily the worst match of the year, and the people who are like, wow, this was really good, they should rethink their lives.
TJ, what's your vote for worst match of the year?
My worst match of the year is the Alley Cat versus Kikutaro from GCW Slime season. It's probably just recency since it took place in December, but I was kind of struggling with this, and this was like the first match that came to my mind because that whole show kind of wasn't that good, but this in particular was just awful, and please don't watch this.
Give me like something that was awful about it. What was terrible about it?
I mean, I think it's just, I usually enjoy Kikutaro because he's a pretty good comedy wrestler. It's just, I don't know, Alley Cat doesn't do anything for me ever, really. I'm not as offended by her as some people are, but I don't know. She just needs to stay away from me for a little bit. She was really the bad thing about the match more than Kikutaro, I think.
Okay, because I heard this match was horrible, but nobody ever seems to tell me specifically why it was so bad, so I guess I should just go watch it for myself.
I'll say if you want to.
Harley, what is your pick for a worst match of the year?
I actually went Toru Yano versus Jado from the first round of the New Japan Cup in June. I can't actually remember why I hated this match so much, but it's the only dud I gave for the year. I think maybe because it just went 8 minutes, which is probably 7.5 minutes too long for these two. But yeah, I remember just really hating this one.
Gerard, what do you have for a worst match of 2020?
Well, avid Omakase listeners would already know my worst match of the year as we went over it on the miscellaneous Puro episode. But I went with Go Shiozaki versus Kazuyuki Fujita from March 29th in Noah. And yes, I watched it live, which is something that a lot of people sort of put a caveat on whether or not you enjoyed it. I watched it live. I didn't like it. I didn't get the hype. And as someone with ADD, I can't stand two people just standing there looking at each other for 30 minutes.
You'll hear that one again in the top 10 for best match of the year. But yes, there you go. So the winner was Orange Cassidy versus Chris Jericho, the Mimosa Mayhem match from AEW, November 7th. That got 4 votes. Then we had a tie for second place, which was Randy Orton versus Edge. Actually, do I have the date on that wrong? Was it All Out or was it... I don't know.
It was All Out.
Okay, so I put the wrong date. So it's actually from September, not from November. So there you go. I'll have to make sure I correct that on my document. Anyway, tied for second, Randy Orton versus Edge, WWE from WrestleMania Night 2 on March 26th. That got 3 votes. And then John Cena versus The Fiend Bray Wyatt, the what the hell was that thing called? The whatever the
Firefly Funhouse match.
The Firefly Funhouse match that also got 3 votes. And then I'll just read all the ones that got 2 votes really quickly, all of our honorable mentions. Maku Donoto versus Shinya Aoki from DDT on July 23rd got 2 votes. Yano versus Jado, which Harley here mentioned, that got 2 votes. Alley Cat versus Kikutaro got 2 votes. The Big Swole versus Britt Baker, Rebel, and Penelope Ford handicap match from AEW, August 27th got 2 votes. Money in the Bank got 2 votes. And Naito versus Evil from Dominion, July 12th, got 2 votes. The Omakase Patreon award winners, their winner did not get more than 1 vote in the guest votes, which is interesting. It was Evil versus Kazuchika Okada from July 11th, the New Japan Cup final. That one with 4 votes. And then Yano versus Jado got 3 votes. Nothing else got more than a vote. So there you go for worst match of the year. That's all the worst categories. We're done with worst. So now we move into the best of 2020. The last category B award, where you only pick 1 per person, is Best Weekly TV Show. I voted for DDT TV Show, which was their weekly show that started during the COVID shutdown. I just thought they did the best job of any of the Puro companies at putting on a weekly show in front of no people. Definitely a lot better than even the American companies I saw. Just a really, really fun show with some of my favorite matches of Empty Arena, like Endo and Higuchi, from the first week, which was probably the best match in front of no fans that I saw all year. Also, the All Out versus Yoshihiko feud was awesome. There's just a ton of great stuff on this show. The Masato Tanaka stuff, all leading up to the Empty Arena Peter Pan. So just a really, really fun show, and just brings back memories from Maji Manji, which was also a great show when they used to do that weekly. So that was where I voted here. I voted for DDT TV show. What did you pick here, Suit?
I went with AEW Dynamite. I think their run up to Revolution was some of the best wrestling TV I've ever seen. And then coming through the pandemic and toward the end of the year after Full Gear, they've really gotten back into the swing of things and really just been doing some real good stuff on the TV. Unfortunately, culminating in the Brody Lee Memorial Show, which you wish never happened, but was a great tribute show.
Yeah. Mongo, what'd you have here for Best Weekly TV?
Well, I was very glad that you had an error in your ballot and you allowed AEW Dark as a Best Weekly TV show, because Dark is actually a podcast, and it's my favorite podcast. It's 2 hours every week of Taz just being very wacky and saying whatever ridiculous stuff comes to his mind, and sometimes being joined by Ricky Starks and Excalibur trying to call a wrestling show during this podcast. And I love to just zone out and play video games or do whatever while I watch Dark. And while I really love Dynamite, I actually get excited when they announce the Dark matches for the week, just thinking, what is Taz going to say about the Pandas or Bear Country or whatever wacky team shows up. So I love AEW Dark.
There you go. TJ, what'd you vote for Best Weekly TV?
I voted for AEW Dynamite, but it didn't even come to my mind to think of the DDT TV shows or the old Japan TV or anything like that, because I probably would have voted for one of those if I would have thought about it. But Dynamite's the only weekly TV I really watch every week, so, and even though I have my problems with it, it's mostly good, so it was a pretty easy vote, even if I would have voted for All Japan or DDT if I would have thought about it.
Harley, what'd you put here for Best Weekly TV?
I also went Dynamite. It's probably all I really want out of weekly TV wrestling, especially from America. There's some, I guess, segments in it that stink, but as a whole, I'm not offended by it like I am by the 3 WWE shows. So that's why I went Dynamite.
Gerard, what'd you put for Best Weekly TV?
I went with All Japan sort of AGPW Broadcast 2020. I thought it was some of the best Empty Arena stuff. They had some really cool angles. It was sort of structured like an American TV show at times, because the show would start off and Enfants would come to the ring and cut a promo and everything. And it was probably arguably the peak of the company, because everything fell off a cliff when the fans came back.
Yeah, I would have voted for All Japan second if I was going to do a second place. I thought they did a good job too. Dynamite is a good, I get why people like it. My problem with it always is I just think the wrestling quality is kind of not good. So that ends up being what holds it back for me. But other than that, the way they structure their TV and everything, and the interviews are usually really good. So it did win the award, not really surprising, for the second straight year. It got 21 votes. Dark came in second with 5 votes. DDT TV show came in third with 4 votes. And then your honorable mentions, Gato Move Choco Pro, New Japan Strong, and All Japan all got 2 votes each. Very similar on the Patreon, except a little bit less votes for Dynamite. Dynamite won with 14 votes, and then tied for second was the DDT TV show and Gato Move Choco Pro, which both got 5 votes. Nobody voted for Dark, though, so Dark was much more popular with the guests than it was with the patrons. So there you go. Okay, so now we're into category A, where everybody picked 3, everybody made 3 picks here, first through third place, and then we awarded the points on a 5-3-2 basis, and then we also used the most number of first place votes as a tiebreaker, which did come into play quite a bit in these categories, because a lot of them were very close. So, best major show, I voted for the let's see, what did I vote for? Actually, voted for New Japan, New Beginning in Osaka in third place, which I thought was the best New Japan show of the year. Just a really outstanding show with a lot of the top matches were all really good, and then even like the undercard tags were weirdly good. So I just loved this show. I thought it was New Japan's best. Second place, I voted for DDT Ultimate Party, which again, nobody does supercards as well as DDT does, over the last like 5 years, and I thought this was another really, really good, strong effort from DDT with, especially a super strong top 2 matches with Akiyama and Takashita and Endo and Sasaki, but plenty of other good stuff on the card too. And then first place, I went with DDT Tokyo Joshi Wrestle Princess. So these were 2 shows only 4 days apart, November 3rd and November 7th. And I thought these were, this was also a really awesome show. Just had like a, really great crowd for the COVID era that you could tell was really into, seeing Tokyo Joshi in their biggest building ever at Tokyo Dome City Hall. And, the main event was one of the best matches of the year with Yuka Sakazaki and Mizuki. The Hyper Misao and Saki Akai like rule changing match was one of the funniest comedy matches I've ever seen, and the entire show was just like super, super fun, classic Tokyo Joshi stuff here. And I just thought this show was like the best major show I saw during 2020. What do you have here, Suit, for best major show?
All right, so for best major show, in third place, getting it just under the gun, I got Final Gate from Dragon Gate on December 20th. They got 3 notebook matches for me. Keisuke Okuda versus Kagetora for the Brave Gate was very good. You got Shun Skywalker versus Ben K, the main event, which, despite Ben K getting knocked out at the end, was still very good. And then you had the Unit Disbands match, Toryumon Generation versus RED, which I will be talking about later. It's what we call a tease in the biz. Second place, I've got AEW Revolution. The tag match was great. The Moxley Jericho match was very good in the main event. And then you had Pac versus Orange Cassidy as well in between. So just a real good show. The build up from it felt like the culmination of that really good February AEW was having. And then number 1, because I'm boring, Wrestle Kingdom Night 1, January 4th. You can't go wrong. Like, I had 2 5-star matches on the same show. I don't know how that's possible, but I did. Hiromu and Will and Okada Bushi, I went 5 on both. So, yeah, can't go wrong with 1-4.
Mongo, what do you have here for best major show?
So for best show in third place, I had the Stardom 9th anniversary match. The 9th anniversary show. I just remember when Stardom was putting up the VODs. I think the first one I saw go up was the Wonder of Stardom match, the Arisa Hoshiki versus Utami match, and I was like, wow, this is great. And I was so sad when Hoshiki retired. I loved the last year and a half, especially her run with the Wonder of Stardom title. Thought she was so good, one of the best wrestlers in the world. And I was posting about that, and someone's like, "Oh, that's not even the best match on the show." And then there was the Mayuri Watani versus Momo Watanabe match, which was also fantastic. Maybe even a little better. Plus the Tam Nakano Kagetsu match, which was really good. It was just a great show. And
the Utami one was the one where she busted open Utami's nose or something, right? Legit.
I think so. I don't have a lot of memories of pre-COVID shows. I just remember loving that show.
'Cause I think that match was why Japanese fans started calling Arisa the new Inoki on Twitter. So I thought that was funny.
And I can't even believe that show was in the same year now.
Yeah,
and
I know.
Second place, I had AEW Double or Nothing. I loved the Stadium Stampede. I loved the Moxley versus Brody Lee match, especially the finish. That was a really great finish. I loved Hikaru Shida versus Nyla Rose, and I thought it was a really strong card. Even the wacky casino ladder match was so much fun to watch live. And in first place, I had. Let me just double check. Did I actually? I read this wrong. I had Full Gear in third place, 9th anniversary in second place, and Double or Nothing in first place.
There you go.
My mistake. But Full Gear I also thought was a really good show. I was wondering why, like, in my mind, I'm thinking about Full Gear at first place. I'm like, it was a really good show, but like, I feel like Double or Nothing was better based on the way I'm describing it. Like a really good top to bottom card where Double or Nothing like did have a couple of spots where it was maybe weaker, but that Stadium Stampede match, the title match, the ladder match, like just overall really, really great fun show at a time where like I needed a fun show to watch.
There you go. TJ, best major show.
My third best major show was Dragon Gate Final Gate. I just absolutely love the show. Like nothing was outright bad. Like everything on the card was really enjoyable, except for maybe Yoshida and Jason Lee, but it was fine. A little longer for my taste, but beyond that, like everything else was great. Like the final four matches were all great. Other than like the Twin Gate match wasn't great, but it was still good for what they were trying to do because it means BB Hulk and Kai being like shitheads together against old men, killing them. So that was really fun. And it had a match of the year contender in the disbands match, and I still thought the main event was great despite how it finished and all the discourse it caused. But yeah, overall, that's my number 3. My number 2 is Ice Ribbon, New Ice Ribbon, 1057. It was their final Yokohama Bunka Gymnasium show from August. Bottom half of the card was really good, including a really funny triangle ribbon match with Ram Kaicho defending. Had the Fantastic Ice title, I think that's how you say it, between Rina Yamashina and Risa Serra was just awesome. A little bit of hardcore match. Tag title match was really good with Tsukushi and Tsukasa Fujimoto dropping the belts to Frank Sisters, and the main event was just awesome with Maya Yuki finally putting over Suzu Suzuki to make her the new ace of the promotion, or new young ace, even though she lost the belt. But and my number 1 show of the year was Dragon Gate Dangerous Gate from September. Pretty much the same thing as Final Gate. I just loved everything on the show, and the main event, the 6-way steel cage match, was another match of the year contender. It had like one of my favorite moments of the year with Kai turning on Yamato and joining RED. So yeah, those are my top 3 matches, or 3 shows.
Harley, what do you have here for the top 3 best major show?
For that third place, I actually had Summer Struggle in Jingu. Melbourne, where I live, was right in the middle of a really, really harsh lockdown, and I just needed a show like this that felt like New Japan again. I think I went notebook on the top 4 matches, including the Naito Evil main event, because I thought at least then the run-ins had a satisfying outcome to them, and just the ending with the fireworks and Naito holding the double belts again is just something like probably needed at that time of the year. A nice feel-good moment. Second place, I went Revolution, probably just by default, a hot Chicago crowd, which you miss so dearly at this time, and probably it had the second best match of the year, spoiler alert, and the second 5-star match I've given in 18 months in that Hangman Page, Kenny Omega, Young Bucks tag team title match. And the rest of the card was pretty good as well. So that was sort of just by default, I guess, for Revolution as second. And then my first place, I went to Wrestle Kingdom Night 2, because I just thought probably didn't have the superior wrestling as Night 1, but it had that Liger retirement, that awesome Suzuki Moxley moment in the middle of the show when that show probably needed a little bit of a kick. I thought Tanahashi Jericho was fabulous, and it concluded with probably the best match I've ever seen in my life, and maybe my favorite wrestling moment, definitely in the last since I was a kid, in Naito finally getting his moment in the Dome, plus that awesome angle at the end with Kenta as well. So that's why I went Wrestle Kingdom 15 Night 2 as my show of the year.
Gerard, what do you got here for best major show?
Number 3, I went with New Japan G1 Climax Night 2 from September 20th. I just really loved Naito versus Tanahashi. To me, I was like, I didn't know how the G1 was going to turn out, and so I thought Night 2 really set this like feeling that the G1's going to be actually still pretty good this year. I know a lot of people were also down on B Block. I'm not saying it was perfect, but I don't get quite some of the hate that it got.
No, Gerard,
And,
you were pretending. You were pretending. Pretending to like
But
it.
also, I think this had Evil's best match of the year, in my opinion, against Zack Sabre Jr.
Yeah. I love that. That match was awesome.
Number 2 was Noah the Chronicle from November 22nd. It had that was Nakajima versus Go, and that was also Keno versus Kaito for the national title. And I think the junior tag match was the best match I've ever seen Hayata in. And number 1, I will go with Wrestle Kingdom 14 Night 2. There was just something about it. Obviously, the main event is like one of the most satisfying finishes to a show ever. I also really loved Tanahashi versus Jericho, which might turn out to be Jericho's last good match. And it just felt the atmosphere was just incredible on that evening.
So the winner here was the closest winner we've ever had in this category, separated by exactly 1 point. Wrestle Kingdom 14 Night 2, 51 points, 9 first place votes. Second place, Wrestle Kingdom 14 Night 1, 50 points, 6 first place votes. So obviously can't get any closer than that. I thought Night 2 was going to win by a lot, and then like a lot of the late votes came in from Night 1, so it got really, really close. Third place was AEW Revolution. Revolution had 38 points and 3 first place votes, and now just do the rest of the top 5. G1 Climax Night 13, nobody mentioned that one. That was the Okada Shingo and Ibushi Suzuki A-Block show. That had 25 points with 3 first place votes. Fifth place, Ice Ribbon, with their best showing ever on these awards. Gets Ice Ribbon, new Ice Ribbon, Yokohama Bunka Gym Final. I think that's the show you voted for, right, TJ?
Yeah, that was my number 2. It was like definitely one of my favorite matches or shows this year. Like when I was voting for this, that was like the first one that came to mind. Honestly, it was really good.
So that was August 9th in Yokohama, and that finished 5th with 24 points. So only 1 point behind the G1 show. 3 first place votes, and then you can see the rest of the top 10 on an article I'm going to put up on VOW. So I'm not going to go through the whole top 10 here for every award. The Omakase Patreon winners, similar, but they liked Night 2 a lot more. So Wrestle Kingdom 14 Night 2 got 89 points, and then Wrestle Kingdom 14 Night 1 was well behind in second place with 34 points. And then third place was DDT Tokyo Joshi Wrestle Princess with 24 points. So that's your best major show. Okay, so now we're going to deviate from the order a little bit, and I'm going to jump up to Most Outstanding Wrestler, just so there's a bit of a gap between Most Outstanding and Wrestler of the Year. So Most Outstanding Wrestler is the best Wrestler of the Year from an in-ring, bell-to-bell standpoint only. None of the other factors that you put for Wrestler of the Year, also called the Flair Thighs and the Observer. So Most Outstanding Wrestler this year, I went with Hiromu Takahashi. It was really close to me between Hiromu and my number 2. Because, you know, just I had my number 2 at number 1 for a long time, but, you know, just Hiromu to be pulled away with his Best of Super Juniors performance, where I thought, like, every night he was having a 4-star better match, and I just thought, like, you know, he basically carried that tournament. Without him, that tournament, it's not that great, honestly. You know, other guys had good tournaments too. I mean, Desperado Show had a good tournament. You know, Ishimori had a pretty good tournament, but like Doki too, actually had a pretty good tournament. But Hiromu was on like a whole different level in that tournament, and just, you know, really took that on his back and made it a great tournament. So Hiromu was my pick for Most Outstanding. Kaito Kiyomiya from Noah was my second place, where I thought it was under the radar because he wasn't in as many main event spots as he was in previous years, but like everything he was in was outstanding. I mean, he was the MVP of the N1 victory for me. His title match with Go Shiozaki on 1-4 was one of my favorite matches of the year. Just really, really outstanding stuff from Kaito. You know, he really put it all together this year. And then third place, I put Naito. You know, Naito obviously, you know, didn't have like an all-time great year, especially compared to some of the other years he's had. But I thought his G1 Climax was outstanding. You know, the Tanahashi match, the Zack Sabre Jr. match, the Juice Robinson match, the Sonata match was really good. Just a lot of really good stuff in the G1. The Goto, Yoshihashi, I could really go on and on. He had one of the best matches I've ever seen with Okada. You know, had a really good match with Kenta. And, you know, the Evil feud, I know some people hated it, but, like, I really liked their power struggle match especially. And they had, you know, I didn't hate the rest of it as much as other people did. But, yeah, I thought Naito had a really strong year, so I put him in third place here. What did you have here for most outstanding wrestler suit? And you can feel free to go back to the third to first if you want. I don't know why I deviated from that suddenly, but
All right, for most outstanding, number 3, I had Hiromu Takahashi. I just felt his year was really good. He's been the lifeblood of New Japan he's just been so good. And ever since the comeback from the shutdown, he's been, in my opinion, undoubtedly the best part of New Japan. In second place, I've got Will Ospreay. He had the Wrestle Kingdom match, he had the Sabre matches, and ever since coming back, he hasn't done much since coming back because he's been getting the new group together, but I think his start of the year was strong enough to really hold him above water because I just had him, like, if the year's regular, I think he has another just stellar year. And then number 1, Kenny Omega. He was in my best tag team match of the year and several of my best singles matches of the year. I don't know what to tell you. I think he's great.
Okay. Mongo, what do you have Mongo, what do you have for most outstanding wrestler?
Okay, for most outstanding wrestler, third place I have Mayu Iwatani, who I thought her title reign was really tremendous. I kept forgetting about Stardom this year. I'd catch up on New Japan. I was obviously watching AEW. I was watching some GCW stuff. Basically, I was watching the weird DTU produce shows from this summer on the Ranch and the other stuff, and then someone would post about this great match she had, and I'd watch it wow, that was really good. And then before the pandemic, obviously she was doing some of the best stuff of the year. She had that really fun, wacky lumberjack match on the No People Gate. So I was just a huge fan of her overall. Thought she was very versatile this year, on top of being a really good champion, which we'll get to in a different award. Second place, I had Shingo. And it's weird because when I looked at a list of Shingo matches, when I just went to his cage match match guide, I'm wow, he had a better 2019 than 2020. But I thought he was fantastic this year. His matches with Sho were great. The matches with Ishii were great. The Kota Ibushi match was obviously great. That fantastic. What was it? It was a random tag match I remember from June. I think, but I just remember that being really good. A really good match with Goto. I thought he had a great year. And then in first place, I had Kenny Omega. His tag run with Hangman Page was fantastic. And during the real, I guess as close to America got to as a real lockdown during this pandemic, those tape shows from Atlanta and the empty arena stuff in Jacksonville, he had a lot of really good, a diverse kind of run there. He had just some maybe overly long, but still really good matches with Sammy, a very wacky tag match with Nakazawa against the Best Friends. And then just he was great as a top tier tag and singles wrestler. I loved the match with Hangman. I loved a lot of his work this year. I thought he was fantastic, and he's my most outstanding wrestler.
Alrighty, TJ.
My number 3 pick for most outstanding is Katsuhiko Nakajima. I think my 1 and 2 are probably they probably had higher peaks than he did. But I think Nakajima was one of the most consistent wrestlers this year, if not the most. He was constantly great in tags, had the awesome 30-minute draw with Suzuki right before the shutdown happened. He was the best person in the N1 this year, in my opinion, at least. And his match with Go for the title was just phenomenal. One of the best matches this year. My number 2 was Hiromu Takahashi. Hiromu started off strong with winning the junior title in a great match against the Commonwealth Kingpin. Another great match defending against Dragon Lee. And then once the startup happened, he was really good in the New Japan Cup. Had what seems like a lot of people consider Evil's best match in his reign. and was pretty much front and center during that entire feud anyway. But he lost the title in Jingu, a great match with Ishimori. Had another great match with Ishimori in the Best Super Junior. Like you mentioned, he was like the highlight of the entire tournament. I think he had just about everyone's best match in that tournament, and him and Bushi were even good in the junior tag tournament. So I don't know. He's my number 2 guy here, and my number 1 is Go Shiozaki. I had other guys ahead of him for most of the year, but came pretty apparent once the year went along that he was going to be my most outstanding, because he started off the year with his match with Kaito, which I still maintain is the best match to take place on January 4th, much better than Ibushi and Okada. A great reign, and had the Fujita match. I think he was one of the best guys in N1, and he bookended the year with back-to-back match of the year contenders with Nakajima and Segura, plus a few great tag matches thrown out throughout the year for good measure. But yeah, he's my number 1.
Alrighty. Harley, your top 3 for most outstanding.
At number 3, I went Go Shiozaki. He had 3 of my top 10 matches of the year this year, and I thought he had a really good N1 as well. For number 2, I went Hiromu Takahashi. I think he mixed it up with the heavyweights and was great. He had a good little tag run with Bushi, and I think they always have pretty good tag matches anyway. And I think he was clearly the standout of the best of the Super Juniors anyway. Again, and he just feels like a big deal as well. Like his matches, whenever that time bomb music hits, it just feels like something big is going to happen, which is like he's really captivating in that way. And number 1, I'm pretty stunned and pretty upset no one said him already, but I went the Stone Pitbull Tomohiro Ishii. Whenever he steps in the ring, it's always great. He had an incredible tag match in New Year's Dash against Evil and Shingo Takagi teaming with Hiroki Goto. He had some great 6-man, probably the best 6-man run we've ever seen. Not that that's saying much, but he's actually having great matches. His New Japan Cup in front of no fans was great. His G1, he ranked the highest out of the people I ranked in the G1. And even his World Tag League stuff with Yano, I think, was probably in the top half of tags, even though, again, that's probably not saying as much. But just in every format, the multi-mans, the tags, and the single stuff, I think his body of work is so strong. So that's why I went Tomohiro Ishii.
Alrighty. Finally here, Gerard, what do you have for most outstanding wrestler?
Number 3, Tetsuya Naito. Was not super high on the evil stuff, but what got him in my top 3 was his performance in the G1, which is incredible. Number 2 is Will Ospreay. I think Suit also got most of the major points, but I'll just add Ospreay. What I'm basing this on is also his amazing match against Dowie James back in January in Melbourne City Wrestling, as well as his Rev Pro stuff like winning the title from Zack Sabre Jr. and some of the Empty Arena Epic Encounter shows from Rev Pro, which were awesome stuff from him. And number 1, Hiromu Takahashi. I don't know what else to say because he's been on everybody else's list. It was just an incredible year, and I will give him credit for just being able to have an incredible match with anyone.
There you go. So the overall guest awards here, Hiromu did win. 61 points, 8 first place votes. Kenny Omega, the gamer, finishes in second, 52 points, 7 first place votes. Go Shiozaki, a strong third place, 42 points, 5 first place votes. And then a bit of a drop off after that to Shingo Takagi in fourth, 27 points with 1 first place vote. And Katsuhiko Nakajima in fifth, 25 points with 4 first place votes. The patrons also had Hiromu winning, 68 points. Yeah, they had Go Shiozaki in second with 51 points, and then they have Shingo Takagi coming up to third with 30 points. So I guess I'm not surprised people who pay to hear me talk are not as big Kenny Omega fans, but there you go. Okay, for best promotion, from here on out I'm going to reverse the order, so Gerard's not going last every time. So that way we, just go in reverse order from here on out for the last few awards here. So best promotion obviously is just the best wrestling promotion of the year in 2020. I went with New Japan in first. Well, actually, let me go back to third through first. I don't know why I keep reversing that. So for third place, I had DDT. I thought they had a strong year between DDT and Tokyo Joshi. I already mentioned I think they had some of the best empty arena stuff of anybody I saw, and I like their stuff post-COVID. The only thing, or post-empty arena, because obviously we're still dealing with COVID. The only thing holding them back a little bit is I wasn't that high on their early of the year stuff before the empty arena kicked in. But I think everything after the empty arena stuff has been really, really good. And Tokyo Joshi is always a huge bonus for them since it's one of their sub-brands. Second place, I have Noah. I mean, they just had an outstanding year. A ton of awesome main event stuff. Again, the only thing holding them back a little bit would be their undercards don't always do a ton for me, but there's still plenty of good stuff on the undercards too. It's just not always quite the full all-around shows for me. It's more the top-end stuff is really, really good. In first place was still New Japan for me. I know a lot of people were down on their year, but I really enjoyed most of their year. It still has the best, my favorite roster of wrestlers. I think it still has the most consistent in-ring quality, even when the angles maybe didn't hit as well as they did in prior years. Although really, we went over this in the Japan Year in Review. I don't really think there's a ton of evidence to support that most people outside of a certain group of Western hardcore fans didn't actually like the Evil Tour and the Evil Reign. And after we recorded that episode, the New Japan reported that the Evil shirt was actually their number one seller in December on the global shop, so not even the Japanese shop, which again would indicate to me there's more people out there who are into Evil than the vocal minority online who hate his reign would have you believe. So, I think they had a strong year. I wouldn't call it my all-time favorite year of theirs or anything. I mean, it's always going to be an issue nothing this year was my all-time favorite anything because of, the COVID-19 pandemic and everything and all the associated crowd restrictions. But for the most part, I really like their year. So I went with them in first place. What do you have here, Gerard? Start with you this time.
Number 3, Big Japan. I thought they had a really low-key, great year. Strong division, especially. Daichi Hashimoto decided he woke up one day and was like, I'm actually going to become a good wrestler and try. And he had a really good, strong title reign. Deathmatch division was a little lacking. I don't really like Minoru Fujita up top, but the strong in the junior divisions with Yuya Aoki and Strong Hearts on a lot of the big shows, I thought put together a really solid product. Number 2, this might infuriate some Joshi hardcores, but I went with Stardom. I just thought it was pretty consistent all year long, even despite obviously having to deal with things like the tragic passing of Hana Kimura. They elevated Utami up into the red belt, and Julia really sort of just stepped up, and they have sort of built her to the edge of she's going to be a superstar soon. So I just thought it was a really consistent year. And number 1, I went with Pro Wrestling Noah. And you might ask, Gerard, how can you have the worst match of the year from the company that you say is the best promotion? Well, I say there is some really wacky stuff in Pro Wrestling Noah, like the junior division, but the peaks, to me, heavily outweigh the weaknesses.
Harley, what do you got here for best promotion?
Third place, I went with Pro Wrestling Noah. This is my first probably consistent year of watching it sort of throughout, and I'm really happy I did. Their main event scene was pretty incredible. They had a really good N1 tournament as well. Second place, I went with New Japan. Obviously dropped off from the previous few years for me, from going from first to second. So a big drop there. But yeah, they just didn't. The difference between my 1 and 2 is that obviously, and no fault of theirs, but New Japan didn't have shows for a quarter of the year. So that's why I didn't think I didn't hate the Evil stuff as much as a lot of people. So I thought there. I mean, obviously there was a drop off with the crap clap crowds and all that sort of stuff. So, but I didn't think there was a dramatic drop off with the match quality, and also the angles are still good. I think the Evil turn was a good angle. I just didn't like the match they had afterwards. So I think that's why they're still number 2 and by a clear margin. And then sort of by default, my first place I did AEW just because they ran all year or were able to run all year. They never really pissed me off that much. I thought their peaks were good. Their lows weren't so low. And they were just generally consistently very good for 52 weeks.
TJ?
My number 3 promotion of the year is Dragon Gate. if I'd like been following them more closely all year, it might have been higher, to be honest. But unfortunately, I was a bit of a fly-in fan for Dragon Gate until this summer, really. But once I got invested, I thought it was like one of the best book promotions in the back half of the year. Like firing on all cylinders, pushing all their young talent, with them living up to the push, especially SB Kento. All while having pretty solid matches all year, from Doi's title reign and both tag divisions, plus 2 match of the year contenders and the 6-man cage match and the disbands match from Final Gate. My number 2 is DDT, and what can I say? I pretty much enjoyed everything they've done this year. Kicked off the year with that great Masato Tanaka reign. Endo ended it in like one of my favorite DDT matches this year, other than Takashita and Yoshihiko, which is my favorite DDT match this year. Then he had a great reign, including like winning the King of DDT and feuding with Damnation, or feuding with Sasaki more specifically, I guess. And tag and trio scene was great with Nautilus Interruption, basically plowing through everyone and inevitably feuding with each other. Both those tag teams were used really well to push Higuchi and Ueno, with some help from Endo feuding with them during that. And I love Takashita. Like, he was on the back burner, but he was still doing stuff, meaningful stuff, feuding with Junratsu and Yoshihiko. And really, my only down thing with DDT was the Universal title, which I didn't really enjoy the match where it got inaugurated. And majority of its existence so far has been Chris Brooks and Sasaki feuding over it, which was fucking terrible. But oh well, that's really like my main complaint about DDT this year. And my number 1 is Noah. My 1 and 2 were kind of neck and neck, but each had things I loved, some things I didn't. Like Noah's obvious flaws are like the junior division being constantly in turmoil, and I think most of the matches for the juniors have been too long. Depends on who's in them, I guess. But I just felt that in general, though, Noah had more top end matches this year, especially the back half of the year. And I personally thought the N1 was the best round robin tournament this year. And also, just including business reasons, I think they took advantage of a great situation for them, and the fact that New Japan has been down this year in the eyes of Western fans. And I think Noah's done well to fill the gap for people that didn't get what they were wanting from New Japan. And they've got a lot more buzz going into 2021 in the West thanks to it. So they're my number 1.
Mongo, what do you have here for best promotion?
Well, best promotion, very different year for me, since usually CML is going to be up there and GCW, but CMLL has basically been a non-factor for the last few months. I have not enjoyed their stuff at all. So my number 3 is New Japan, who I know a lot of people don't like the direction of New Japan this year, but I mean, even when they're doing like kind of WWE style sports entertainment stuff, they do it a lot better than WWE. It's maybe a little too long on the run-ins. Maybe things could be tightened up a bit, but you know, I didn't hate the Evil Naito matches. I loved the ballpark show finish. Like, I thought that was great. I thought that was a really good show overall, and I thought overall, when I watched New Japan, I like it. I don't dislike it. Second place, I had Stardom, which it would fall off my radar for a few weeks, but then I'd
have a BLT the Carl's Jr. way for just $2.99 with charbroiled beef, creamy ranch, and more beef. The new BLT Ranch Double Cheeseburger for just $2.99. Part of charbroiled double deals at Carl's Jr. Feed your happy. Offer valid for limited time at participating Carl's Jr. restaurants. Price and participation may vary. Tax not included.
PPG, the paint pros know and have trusted for over 135 years, has added something new to the mix. An extended lineup of PPG products now at the Home Depot, like PPG Speed High, Multi-Pro, and Breakthrough. In stock, available for easy pickup, or to make things even better, we can deliver right to the job site. A new lineup of PPG products, ready to go, ready to work, available now from the Home Depot. How doers get more done. U.S. only.
I'd watch it. I'm like, wow, it was really good. I need to make sure I keep up with this, and then it would fall off my radar, and I'd have to catch up. And the stuff they were doing before the pandemic was really good. The couple of no people shows they did were really fun. The shows they've done since, they're not quite as good as the shows before the pandemic. They've lost something heat wise, where I don't think New Japan has lost it as much. But I still like the shows more overall. And then number 1 is AEW. I think they've done a great job since COVID, where when I have watched their pre-COVID matches in the last couple of weeks, I do notice the difference, but when I'm actually watching an AEW show, it doesn't feel like there's no one there. It doesn't feel like a dead, like uninteresting show. And overall, like, I thought Dynamite's really good. Like, I like watching it every week. I think their storylines are generally really good. The promos are really good. The wrestling is really fun, and at its peaks is like fantastic. The Brody Lee tribute was incredible, and I think Dark is like incredibly entertaining. So overall, like, I think that they were my number one promotion.
Suit, what do you have here for best promotion?
All right, for number 3, I have Rev Pro. I think at the start of the year, they were doing some really good things to set up for the rest of their year, getting the belt on Will Ospreay, getting Michael Oku, their cruiserweight title over El Phantasmo, and just setting up a lot of stuff throughout the year. It ended up not working out, but they've really bounced back with the Epic Encounter shows. I think those have done a really good job of just setting up their next guys, setting up who they have, and just going with them. So I think as far as that goes, Rev Pro's done a very good job of that. In second place, I have AEW. For all the reasons mentioned, I think their shows peak very high, and their floor isn't too low. Great TV, great pay-per-view, and they do a really good job of like bouncing off of obstacles and making progress out of the obstacles. Like with the little tournament they had Joey Janela go out, and then in the next round they had Phoenix go out. They were both supposed to face Omega, so they just do those matches as big main events to end the year. So I just think that's an example of them just being really versatile and really flexible, and just not falling into pit holes like that. And then for number 1, I went Dragon Gate. Now, I've only been following them like since Kobe World, but I listened to Open the Voice Gate on the Voice of Wrestling podcast network, and just hearing how Dragon Gate's been just completely unafraid in taking these young guys, these trainees like SB Kento and Hip Hop Kakuta, and just shoving them in main event spots. Like, they're not messing around. Like, you're ready, go for it. And seeing them go for it and like be as great as they have been, and in my opinion peaking with that Unit Disbands match, it's awesome to hop on at this time because you feel like you're at the start of something that could really turn out to be something special for a promotion. So for number 1, I went with Dragon Gate.
So the results, AEW did indeed break New Japan's 3-year streak. They were in first place for 89 points and 12 first-place votes. The top 4 was really, really close for a while, especially the top 3. But AEW closed really, really strong in the last round of balloting. I assume, like the last couple of days, I assume a lot of that was the very positive feedback from the Brody Lee tribute show on the 30th. But yeah, they basically swept the last few days of balloting. Second place was Noah with 74 points and 8 first-place votes, their best showing by far in the history of these awards. Third place was New Japan, 62 points and 10 first-place votes. Fourth place was Dragon Gate, another one that closed very strong, almost caught New Japan for third. They have 57 points with 8 first-place votes. And then fifth place, DDT, 20 points, 1 first-place vote. The patrons had this one really different. They had New Japan as the winner with 94 points, so an overwhelming win for New Japan. And then Noah in second place with 71 points, and AEW in a distant third with 37 points. So the patrons a little more high on New Japan than the guests, and a little bit lower at AEW, which doesn't really surprise me. Best feud, so obviously this is just the best feud of the year. You can make it strictly in-ring. You can weigh other factors too if you want. This one I went back and forth on. I decided to go with Go Shiozaki and Nakajima from Noah in third place. I had this higher, but when I really thought about it, I do think the argument that I was a little bit too rushed really does, it felt like they went right to the match a little too quickly. That does hold water with me. so I bumped it down to third. And I still think the build up and, by the time they played that hype video for the match when they came out there, it did feel like a really big feud. But I think maybe going a little bit too fast for me had me put it in third. I went with Tetsuya Endo versus Daisuke Sasaki from DDT in second. Just a really strong feud, especially for something that likely had to be rebooked on the fly because, they were originally supposed to have Kenny Omega come in for Ultimate Party. But, this ended up being an amazing backup plan, and I was really happy with the way this feud turned out. First place, I went with this as kind of a fuck you to some people more than anything. Tetsuya Naito versus Evil from New Japan, where I just thought this feud deserved almost none of the criticism it got. If you didn't like the matches, that's fine. I still think the matches were overly maligned, let's just say. I thought two of them were really good. The G1 match and the Power Struggle match. The Power Struggle match was like awesome match. The people were way too unfairly hard on because of a combination of the interference and I guess just not wanting to see a fourth straight match in that series. But I loved that match. The Summer Struggle match was probably the weakest of the four, but because there were some botches, but it's still a strong, entertaining, heated match, especially for a COVID era. And the Dominion match was nowhere near as bad as people said it was. That was a really good match. That Naito sold his ass off in that match, and I really don't even know what people were watching, honestly, to call it that bad. And the G1 match was good, but forgettable. But like all the other aspects of this feud, the turn was great. Evil finally turning on his LIJ leader, the first person LIJ to turn since 2015. Bringing in Dick Togo was great. I thought he was great as like Evil's second. But basically just like it led to some really awesome promos from both guys and a lot of great interviews. If you seek out the extra interview stuff, and they teased it and like dropped hints for months when Naito had called Evil his the weakest heavyweight member of LIJ, and then like openly wondered what he would do about it, and then obviously he turns on him as a result. I think it's one of these things where if you were paying really close attention, if you're one of the people that pays really close attention to like New Japan interviews and stuff, it probably worked for you even better. So I did go with Naito and Evil here, and I don't regret this decision at all. Gerard, what do you have as your best feud picks?
Yeah, like you, John, I had some. This was probably the hardest thing I had to come up with because I just wasn't really impressed with the way a lot of feuds turned out this year. Like I didn't rank Nakajima versus Go in my top three because I thought it was too rushed. So I went with number 3, Eddie Kingston versus Jon Moxley. The match didn't turn out to be that great, or at least the one on pay-per-view, but the mic work was incredible. Number 2, I went with Susumu Yokosuka versus the All Japan Juniors, which was probably the best thing All Japan did in 2020, just in terms of the number of really great matches that it turned out. Like there was a couple of great matches of Susumu versus Hikaru Sato and a really great match against Francesco Akira. And number 1 feud, I went with Yoshiko versus Arisa Nakajima. They had two in Seed Ring. They had 2 really great matches. They had a draw in January and then a title match in July. And like I'm not like a big Seed Ring fan, but like I generally for the smaller Joshi promotions, I go to the like what people are suggesting, like best matches from them, and pick and choose. And I just thought this really stood out to me. And like I think Yoshiko is one of the best heels in wrestling. Alrighty,
Harley, what do you got here for best feud?
In third place, I went Eddie Kingston versus Jon Moxley. This is more of just reward Eddie Kingston for the years. I thought his mic work, especially in this feud, was incredible, and even just the way this feud started with Eddie Kingston never got eliminated from the Battle Royal to then it escalated. Eddie Kingston never gave up, even though he passed out. I was a bit high on probably that main event than Gerard, but again, probably disappointing. That's why this feud's not as high, but the mic work was pretty incredible in it. In second place, I went Los Ingobernables de Japón versus Bullet Club. Now, I didn't like the Evil Naito feud as much as you, John. I still liked it, but I also thought that as a whole year, the year was pretty much about Naito versus Bullet Club. which also seeped into the other members of Los Ingobernables de Japón as well. Like, I thought the Kenta Naito feud at the start of the year was incredible. And then I loved their match as well. I thought the Evil turn was awesome. I thought the Hiromu stuff with Evil was probably Evil's most entertaining stuff he did, especially that main event. I know some people didn't like it as much, but I thought that was Evil's best match.
Can I just ask you, did you see that Hiromu interview he did? Like that was like a whole separate 15-minute interview about before the Evil match?
Before that match?
Yeah.
Yeah, it was incredible.
Yeah. Because I think almost nobody watched that because it wasn't on a show or anything. Like, it was a separate video you had to seek out. But they did such an awesome job.
It was Hiromu saying Evil couldn't even beat Ishii, and Hiromu could beat him on his first try.
Yeah, he said, "Come ask me for tips," is what he said.
Yeah, it's just awesome. And even that angle at the end of Dominion with Hiromu just screaming and he's lost his friend. His mentor has cheated him. Just great stuff. I'm probably also a little bit higher. I mean, I loved Evil before he turned. I thought he was fantastic in that role as sort of Naito's right-hand man, first member of LIJ. So I'm probably a bit more into this Sonata Evil feud as well, because I love them as a tag team. I thought they should have probably been pushed as a tag team to try and rehabilitate the division. A couple of years ago when they started winning all those tag leagues. So I'm a bit more into that feud as well. The only time I really was sort of tired of Bullet Club LIJ was probably a power struggle with the fourth in however many months it was, 4 and 4 months, Evil Naito matches. And, I'm sure, John, you know that Naito is also my favorite wrestler, and I really would have liked to seen him do a little bit more in his big reign than just really sort of feud with Evil. Yeah. I mean, despite loving the rest of the Bullet Club stuff.
This is basically... that was the problem of the condensed year, because obviously it would have been way more spread out.
Exactly. So I've got them at 2. And then first, I've got John Moxley versus Kenny Omega. To me, it just felt like a big deal, and like a big deal we haven't had in American wrestling for years. The follow-up is so far is great as well. I thought the match was fine. The angle was good in theory. Didn't love the execution of it. But to me, I thought that was just sort of a no-brainer with just how big it felt. And when you look at all the actual parameters that you judge success on, the ratings was good. Probably they did a decent fight buy rate, I guess, for that Winter Is Coming show.
Well, it was a free TV show.
Overseas you got.
Oh, yeah.
I have to buy Dynamite on Fight. So I suppose it probably did if you're not subscribing monthly, that probably popped a bit of a number as well. So that's why I went Moxley versus Omega as number 1.
Alrighty. TJ, what do you have here for best feud?
For my third best feud, I have All Out versus Jinretsu, but more specifically Takeshita versus Akiyama. I think this is a DT feud even non-DT fans can appreciate. It's basically once Takeshita finished off once All Out in general finished off Takeshita or Yoshihiko, All Out transitioned right into this feud with Akiyama's new unit, Jinretsu. I thought they had several fantastic multi-man matches, which I thought culminated in a great match with Akiyama and Takeshita at Ultimate Party, but then they ran it back a couple weeks ago in the Dio Grand Prix finals, which I thought was great. I kind of preferred the Ultimate Party match, but still I thought both were great matches, and I'm really curious if this feud's going to continue into 2021, because you'd think Takeshita's going to get his win back, but either way, I still thought it was a great series of matches between Jinretsu and All Out. Second feud also features All Out versus Yoshihiko. I thought it was just fun as hell. A great series of matches on their TV shows between each member of All Out and a fucking doll. I don't know. I know non-DT fans probably won't enjoy this as much as I did, but I thought it was I loved every match they had with Yoshihiko during that little series of matches. And Takeshita and Yoshihiko is my favorite DT matches here. And like I said, I think it's definitely a feud only DDT fans will appreciate, but I loved it. And my number 1 is Katsuhiko Nakajima versus Go Shiozaki. Pretty easy choice. I think it was the best built main title feud in just about any company this year. I think they went in New Year's as one of the best tag teams of 2019. Go wins the belt. They drop the tag titles basically immediately. and then they lose tag league, and I guess Nakajima got fed up and turned on him. N1 happens, and the Yokohama Budokan main event followed right after that, and I thought that was an incredible match, one of the best matches of the year. Like, my only fault is, like multiple people have already said, is that they kind of rushed to it, and I would have loved if they would have like extended this out a little bit, but I kind of get why they did, because they're doing Budokan. I guess they want to run Muto versus Go, but even though I think they should have extended the feud out a little longer, I still thought it was like the best feud this year.
Mongo, your top 3 for best feud.
Okay. For best feud, I'm sure that I'm the only one who's voting for my third place pick, which is Ricky Shane Page and the state of Ohio versus GCW. The last show I was able to go to before Corona was Run Ricky Run in Atlantic City. And the atmosphere for that feud and that main event between Nick Gage and Ricky Shane Page was incredible. It was like an early 2000s CZW crowd, with especially after the screw job in the main event, where everyone is just throwing stuff at the heels, and it was just incredible. I haven't seen heat like that in a long time. It was just a very fun, very like that kind of wrestling feud, and I'm sad that COVID and Nick Gage's injury means we didn't get to see the I assume eventual result, but maybe it's off the table depending on how injured Gage is. Second, I have Jericho versus Moxley. I really like this feud, maybe partially because of the involvement of the Ford GT. I thought that was like such a great wacky detail, like Moxley just showing up with this GT that he's basically stolen from Jericho and Shad Khan, like using his card collection on TV. But I thought the angles were really good leading up to it. Moxley did a great job with the eye patch, and they did a great spot in their blow off, paying that off. I really enjoyed that feud. And first place, the Inner Circle versus the Elite. Like, this led to some great like matches. It led to a great, like, whatever the Stadium Stampede was, it was one of the most entertaining things I've seen all year. Lots of crazy spots leading up to it, like Sammy taking the golf cart right to the head, and some of the stuff with Matt Hardy, and even earlier, like what it looked like it was going to be building up to Blood and Guts in Newark. It was just a really, really great feud, and I mean, I think it's a testament to all the guys that like they were able to transition from this kind of heavy heat, like working for, crowds, building up to a blood feud, War Games main event, and then kind of switched it to like a wackier stunt and cinematic style feud with the Stadium Stampede.
Alrighty. Suit, what do you have here for your best feud?
Feud of the year. For number 3, I have Minoru Suzuki versus Jon Moxley. That moment when Suzuki came out on night 2 of Wrestle Kingdom, like, I was staying up watching that live and I was falling asleep, but when Suzuki's music hit, I just popped right up, like, and from there, it was a short one because like the match was the next month, but it was everything you would want a Suzuki Moxley built up match to be. So I've got that at number 3. Number 2, I've got the Young Bucks versus Omega and Page. I think this one, it was just a really good, like, it was just a good like story with Page trying to break out on his own but not being like confident enough. You've got the Bucks kind of being upset that this guy is like, they feel like he's disrespecting them. And then you got Omega caught in the middle, and then it all built up to that match at Revolution where it was all just great. You had callbacks to the Bucks being mad about Omega and Ibushi. You had Page breaking out on his own and in the end getting the win. It was a very good story that in one match kind of just really all came together. And then in number first place, I had Jon Moxley versus Eddie Kingston. I think this kind of feud, this is AEW at its peak, where you got two guys who are great talkers, and you just let them talk people into the building. And that is what these two did. Remember, this was coming off of All Out, which was a shaky show, AEW's worst pay-per-view by a margin. And I was pretty cold on the company coming out of All Out. And them building this up, and Eddie and Moxley just doing their thing really got me back into things, and it really just got me on this high with AEW again. So, number one, Moxley versus Kingston, an example of what AEW really can be in the years come.
So Moxley versus Kingston did indeed win with the guests. First place, 55 points, and 7 first place votes. Second place, maybe someone mentioned this, I don't think anyone did. Kaito Ishida versus Keisuke Okuda from Dragon Gate. That got 46 points with 6 first place votes. Third place definitely did come up. Go Shiozaki versus Nakajima. That got 42 points for 5 first place votes. Then a drop to fourth, which was Naito versus Evil from New Japan. 15 points with only 1 first place vote, which was mine, obviously. And then fifth place, Dangerous Tekkers versus Golden Ace from New Japan. 14 points with 1 first place vote. The patrons decided to go with Tekkers versus Golden Ace as their winner. Overwhelming winner, 50 points. So that was a pretty big jump over to the Patreon awards. And then Moxley versus Kingston finished second over there with 36 points. And another one that got a lot more support with the patrons was Hiromu Takahashi versus El Desperado. And that finished third place with 33 points. Okay, so I'm going to do an executive decision here and say we do Tag Team of the Year next, and then we'll save Match of the Year for our second to last one. So my picks for Tag Team of the Year, I went in third place with the team of the Eruption Trio, basically. I went back and forth on this. There was a bunch of different ones that I decided, I also had almost went with their Tami Hashishida and Saya Kamitani as well. But I decided to go with Eruption. I really liked their work here, both in the tag and trios divisions in DDT. So I gave it to the trio of Katsada Higuchi, Yukio Sakaguchi, and Saki Akai. Just thought they were one of the best parts of DDT's year. My second place, also from DDT, I always fuck up saying their names. So Natalius, I think, is how the name is pronounced. But it's Yuki Ueno and Naomi Yoshimura. I went with them in second. Just a very strong year for them as well. Very sad that it ended with a major injury or time off for injury for Naomi Yoshimura, but I thought they had an outstanding year. And then first place, really, to me, not even close, the Dangerous Tekkers of Taichi and Zack Sabre Jr. I mean, just single-handedly almost. I mean, obviously Ibushi and Tanahashi helped too, but almost single-handedly revived this tag team division that had just been laying dormant in New Japan, the heavyweight tag division, for many years. Brought some real excitement to it. Just I've never seen. I can't remember the last time I saw a tag team that can work heel or face so effortlessly, and just be so different at both of them and so good at both of them, like they did throughout the World Tag League. I just thought this was an outstanding tag team. Really, just one of my favorite parts of 2020, the Dangerous Tekkers. Gerard, what do you have here for best tag team?
Number 3, I have Jake Lee and Koji Iwamoto. They started the year off as All Asia Tag Team Champions, had a couple of good title matches. They teamed throughout the rest of the year, but they really peaked again during the Real World Tag League, where they were one of the best teams in the tournament. Number 2, I have Chango and Kaiji Tomato, the legendary 2AW team that took the world by storm during the original lockdown back in the sort of spring, back when a lot of people were watching 2AW because it was one of the companies that were still running shows. They sort of ended up breaking up and turning on each other as soon as they lost the 2AW tag team titles. But I will give them points for being something exciting to watch during the lockdown. And my number 1 tag team of the year are Astronauts, Takuya Nomura and Fubinori Abe. They finally won the Big Japan tag titles this year. They had an awesome match back in October, November, I can't remember, against Strong Hearts, T-Hawk, and Al Lindemann, and they actually managed to drag the aging members of the Twin Towers to a pretty decent match a couple of weeks ago. So their skill is awesome. them, and they've already had a great 2021 to begin with in their match in All Japan. So they were just the best team last year, and I think they're going to be contenders going into 2021 as well.
Harley, what do you have here for Tag Team of the Year?
Third place, I really struggled with this one. Really.
Oh, sorry, you're breaking up, Harley.
Sorry, mate.
Okay, I think you sound better now. Go ahead.
Third place, I really struggled this year because cool. So third place, I really struggled with this one for this year because I thought the top two were standouts. I could have picked anyone here, but I actually ended up going with the best friends, Trent and Chucky T. I thought in the first 3 months of the lockdown or the no fan shows, I thought they were the most consistent part of Dynamite. Constantly having pretty good matches with teams that don't usually have pretty good matches, and culminating in a main event in one of those Fighter Fest shows against Hangman and Page, and I thought that was a nice little reward for effort for them. And then they also had a really cool feud with Proud and Powerful, again culminating in that really fun backstage street fight that they had.
Can I cut in because I want to say this is kind of funny. There is a tag team called Best Friends in the top 10 who finished 6th, but it is Arisa Nakajima and Tsukasa Fujimoto from the World of Jersey.
Well, there you go.
Yeah,
but so I guess that's two best friends that getting votes. Second place, I went with Kenny Omega and Hangman Page. I thought their peaks were pretty incredible. They were consistently very good. If they would teamed for longer, then I know it's pretty unfair for 9 months, but they probably would have run home with it. But that leads me to my first place, which again pretty hypocritical since they probably only really teamed for 6 months, but consistently at least. I went with Dangerous Tekkers in Taichi and Zack Sabre Jr. They felt like a big deal. The tag team titles for the first time since I started watching New Japan felt like, a big deal. They semi-main evented Dominion. They semi-main evented a stadium show. Again, less capacity, but who cares? And I think they were really right there with Hiromu Takahashi as the best performing act in that dual World Tag League and Best of the Super Juniors tour that just happened. So that's why I went with Taichi and Zack Sabre Jr.
Yeah, I should have mentioned that too. The World Tag League, they brought excitement to it for the first time. What felt like forever. So,
yeah, exactly. I mean, it's a low bar, but they had by far the best World Tag League again I've seen since watching New Japan.
Yeah, indeed. TJ, what do you have here for Tag Team of the Year?
My number 3 tag team is Dangerous Tekkers. These two pretty much put tag team wrestling back on the map for New Japan for me, with their feud over the summer with Golden Ace. And what I did watch of World Tag League, they were the highlight, but I didn't really watch all of it because I just didn't want to. But still, I've enjoyed them all year. And like I said, they made tag team wrestling matter in New Japan. So it'll be really disappointing when they lose the belts to GOD and the division goes back to what it was. But hopefully that doesn't happen. My number 2 is Astronauts. They might have snuck into my first place, but I've yet to watch the Twin Towers match, which I hear is pretty good. So maybe that would have bumped them up a little bit. But they were pretty much around all year, having really good matches, both in Big Japan and the Indies. And they've been very strong. They've had a very strong title reign so far, including the match where they won the titles, which is one of the best tag team matches this year with Sekimoto and Sato. And yeah, it's great stuff from them. And my number 1 is Nautilus, Naomi Yoshimura and Yuki Ueno from DDT. They were far and away my favorite tag team this year. They were consistent all year. And were a focal point of DDT this year as a vehicle to get Ueno over, but I still thought they had great matches. I thought the Eruption Nautilus double main event in Korakuen for both the trios and the tag titles, if you combine them into one match, it's the best tag team match of the year for me. But even at separate matches, I thought it was great stuff. But the way they melded in the story from the trios match and the semi-main into the actual tag title match in the main event, just outstanding stuff. And hopefully Naomi comes back soon because I hope they will continue into 2021. But for now, Ueno's doing good stuff with the Universal title, so I can't complain. But yeah, Nautilus is my number 1 tag team this year.
What do you have here for Tag Team of the Year, Mongo?
So in third place, I have the Dangerous Techers. As many people have said, they took a heavyweight tag team division, which is never that interesting. It hasn't been interesting in many years, and they made it very interesting. They made it a highlight of the shows, especially against Ibushi and Tanahashi, and I really enjoyed both guys. I think it was a really tremendous act. Second place, I have the Young Bucks, who just even they had a 3-month period where they weren't really teaming too much because of the lockdowns, and I think Nick having his first child. But and I guess it's not fair to say that because Hangman and Omega, who are my number one, also didn't really team for 3 months this year. But whatever. They had a great match against FTR. They had the great match against Hangman and Omega. They had a bunch of crazy TV matches against the Acclaimed and Top Flight, and just an incredible year of TV tag wrestling. But Hangman and Kenny Omega are my tag team of the year, and there's just something about this team. I am sad that it had to break up, even though I think the resulting feud will be great. Just the way that they could build to their finishes was. I don't think the Bucks do it as well. I don't think really any team does it as well because they just had such a diverse way to set things up. Where the V trigger buckshot lariat was just a really cool move and could lead to different things, and I don't know, just so many great matches. Even if the final match in their reign against FTR wasn't that great, I think they were one of the highlights of the summer. They were one of the highlights of the pre-COVID period with that great moment when they won the belts on the boat. I thought it was a great year for them.
Then what do you got here for me here, Suit? Don't know why I said that so weirdly.
Third place, I've got Dangerous Techers. I'm not as high on them as you guys are, but I still would agree that they have made the New Japan Heavyweight Tag Team division. They have given it some semblance of life. The Golden Aces matches were very good, and I actually watched some of World Tag League because of them. So there you go. That's a feat in of itself. Second, I've got the Young Bucks. They had some really good matches at the start of the year, and then throughout the Daily's Place COVID era, they've done some really good tag stuff, trio stuff, 8-man stuff. And then I wasn't as low on the FTR match as everybody else. I went 4.25 on it, so I thought it was pretty good. And then, the Revolution tag, which was great as well. And then in first place, I have the other team in the Revolution tag match, Omega and Page. I think every match they had in the first 2 months of the year, which is pretty much every match they had as a team up to that point, is on my sheet. Both matches with SCU, the one on the boat and the rematch, then the Lucha Brothers match, then the Revolution tag, then they broke up for a little bit, and then afterwards, after Hangman came back after this Stadium Stampede, they had a lot of solid matches, a lot of 3.5, 3 3/4 star matches. So I just think for the highs that they had at the start of the year and the nice middle that they settled into toward the end, I think that's more than good enough for Tag Team of the Year for me.
All right, so the team that won the award here was the Dangerous Techers, 85 points, 10 first-place votes. Omega and Page finished second, 69 points, 8 first-place votes. Third place, the Young Bucks, 51 points with 5 first-place votes. Then Yuki Ueno and Naomi Yoshimura finished fourth, 33 points, 5 first-place votes. And then the Astronauts finished fifth, 18 points and 2 first-place votes. The Patreon, very similar, except the Dangerous Techers won by a much bigger margin there, 116 points. I think the most one-sided category of any of these categories in either award set. Omega and Page still finished second, but much further behind at 32 points. And then Yoshimura and Ueno finished third with 28 points. Almost caught them for second there. Let's go to Match of the Year, our second to last category here. For Match of the Year, probably not going to surprise anybody with my picks here. Third place, I went with... Well, actually, this one, I was the only one to vote for this match. Kaito Kiyomiya versus Go Shiozaki from Noah on January 4th. I just thought this was even better than the more heavily hyped Go matches against Nakajima and Sugera towards the end of the year. I mean, I thought this was better than almost all the Wrestle Kingdom matches except for one. So just a really, really, really outstanding match and a great start to Noah's year and obviously to Go Shiozaki's year as well. Second place, these are my 2 5-star matches for the year. Hiromu Takahashi versus El Desperado, the Best of the Super Junior final on December 11th. Just an incredible match. Just the image of Desperado ripping the rest of his own mask off is going to stick with me for a very long time. And just, a really, really, really outstanding Best of Super Junior final. Probably, I don't know if it's my favorite ever. It's really up there, so for sure. And the number one, not going to be a big surprise to anybody, Okada versus Naito from January 5th. I just thought this was one of the best matches I've ever seen. I mean, it's one of these things where, like, I was going to love Naito getting his big moment even if it wasn't a great match. I mean, I still have very fond memories of him beating Okada at Invasion Attack 2016 to win the title for the first time. And that's not a great match at all, honestly. That's probably like a 3.5-star match or something. And this match was, though, like they went out there and just had an all-time classic on top of it. I mean, just, nearly a perfect match. One of my favorite matches of all time. And just everything they did in that match. I mean, Naito's selling of the leg when Okada goes after it, when Okada slams that leg down to the table, and Naito just obviously there was a way to sell it, and a lot of wrestlers would have oversold it, but the fact that he knew exactly the right amount to sell that leg injury, really just put that over the top. And the other great moment that sticks out to me with the leg injury is when he goes to give Okada the Destino and then, has to sell the leg injury to, delay covering him so Okada will kick out. I mean, there are so many wrestlers in wrestling nowadays who would have made it a big fucking ordeal. I can picture Will Ospreay in my head, like clutching it and fucking screaming to the heavens and, really delaying it for a long time. But Naito just like reaches down, he grabs it for like half a second, he sells it, it's in pain, and he goes for the cover. And it's just enough of a delay for Okada to kick out. But he totally does not overdo it at all. And he's the only guy left who can like do it in a, really understated way that still can really connect with you on that level, I think. So, and Okada was awesome here too. I'm not trying to bury the guy or anything. I mean, he was great as just like this guy, when he works as like this unbeatable champion, that's when he's at his best. And, very similar performance for him as to the match he had with Shibata in 2017, which again is one of my all-time favorite matches. So, yeah, absolutely outstanding match. Easy pick for Match of the Year. Gerard, I'll start with you here, and then I'll go back to starting with Suit from Wrestler of the Year, I guess. We'll do that. So, Gerard, go ahead with Match of the Year.
Okay, my number 3 was Go Shiozaki versus Takashi Sugera from December 6th. Awesome, hard-hitting match. It didn't feel like it went 15 minutes, which I think is really key to what made that match so great. Second place, I had Will Ospreay versus Hiromu Takahashi from Wrestle Kingdom 14 Night 1. I thought it was just an incredible spectacle. Them doing all those insane dives to the ropes were wild and just an amazing moment. And that was like Hiromu's first singles match back from his injury, which just sort of showed how incredible he still was and how incredible he was going to be this year. And number 1, Tetsuya Naito versus Kazuchika Okada from Wrestle Kingdom 14 Night 2. John, I think you covered all the bases. Just an incredible moment, and one of the best moments, quote unquote moments, when people talk about like the WWE making moments. This was like just one of the best moments in pro wrestling in a long time, I thought.
I didn't even mention the fucking Stardust Press either, which was like the greatest. When Naito pounds his chest and fucking goes to the Stardust Press, and my heart's in my throat because obviously he went for it in 2018 and missed it, and that was the beginning of the end for him. And here he hits it, and he covers him, and Okada kicks out anyway. It was just such a great moment where it was like, no, you didn't need the, like, of course you had to hit the desk, you couldn't beat him. If you could beat him with the Stardust Press, you would have beat him in 2014, which you didn't beat him then either. So just an all-time great moment as well. Harley, what is your match of the year picks here?
At third place, I went Go Shiozaki versus Takashi Sugiura. I think just the 50 minutes as well. Like, I mean, as Gerard said, it didn't feel like 50 minutes, but just knowing it went 50 minutes, and in the context of the back half, especially of Go Shiozaki's year, where he's been held together by tape, and just having to go through another grueling, world title match like that. That sort of tipped it over the edge for some of the others that were just, around that 4.75 stars mark for me. Kenny Omega and Hangman Page versus Young Bucks from Revolution comes in at second place. I thought the in-ring was pretty incredible. It hit all the right story beats without drifting into NXT main event zone. Plus, just like how over Hangman was, and that also leads me to the Chicago crowd being awesome, which is just, again, sorely missed in now it's 2021. And also the first place, I unsurprisingly have gone Tetsuya Naito versus Kazuchika Okada from January 5. The best match I've ever seen, leading to the best moment in wrestling I've ever experienced. The Stardust Press was incredible. Just the when Naito pins him and he's on his back, and just the winner sign comes up with the the what's his music called? Is it just Stardust? With just that starting to bang, yeah. People are in tears, waiting to hear finally the big roll call, and then Kenta coming out. Just the whole presentation from the pre-match promo to the end of Kenta sitting on his chest was just like incredible pro wrestling. So that's why that is my first place match of the year.
There you go. TJ, what is your match of the year picks?
My third place is something probably only I voted for, because if you know me, you know why I voted for this. It is Suwama versus Shotaro Ashino from the All Japan TV. I think it was like match 8 from June 30th. Personally, I thought this was the best match of the No People era. Like, partially just because I'm an Ashino guy. Like, if you know my history, I'm like the Wrestle One English guy for a little bit. And Ashino is just my guy. And it was the middle of his push in All Japan. I was bright-eyed and bushy-tailed, very excited for his future in All Japan. Not so much anymore, but like, I honestly thought he was going to win, but unfortunately he didn't. But I went into this unspoiled, so I was very excited anyway. But I don't know, I just love the match in general anyway. Like, him and Suwama have incredible chemistry, which has continued in all of their meetings since. It's probably so high for me just because of the emotional investment I had into the match. But either way, I still thought it was a great match. And like, if you like simple, hard-hitting wrestling and a ton of suplexes, I think you should watch this.
I can confirm, by the way, you were the only one who voted for it, just if you're wondering.
I mean, I'm sure. I'm fucking Oshino, Mark, so it is what it is. There seems like they're running it back, so I'm a little worried about that, but we'll see. If it's anything as good as like this match, I think I'll enjoy it, even if Oshino probably loses again. My number 2 match is Hiromu Takahashi versus El Desperado. Obviously, the Best Junior final. Again, another Hiromu is also my guy. He's like literally my favorite wrestler ever since I started watching it. So, of course, I was going to pick this one, but I think most importantly, for just giving that context, I think this is my favorite Hiromu match I've ever watched. There's a ton of history throughout, like within the match. That was great wrestling anyway, and it had my favorite moment of the year with Despy losing his mask. And my number 1 pick is Go Shiozaki versus Takashi Sugiura, which it's already been mentioned enough, so I won't go too much into it. But it's pretty much between this and Nakajima for my favorite Go match of his entire reign. But I kind of went through this. I was more invested in the Nakajima match, but overall I thought this was a better match. And I don't know, I just love guys being the shadow of each other. And like they said, the 50 minutes, it blew by very quickly. It did not drag at all for me. So yeah, that's my number 1 match of the year.
Alrighty, Mongo, what do you have here for match of the year?
Okay, for match of the year, I have in third place Mayu Iwatani versus Takumi Aroha from February. This match was so good that the follow-up was my most anticipated match of the year, and unfortunately, I think the lack of cheering fans kind of took that down. It was still a great match, but it could not live up to this one. Especially like the last 5 minutes of this match are some of the most brutal, hard-hitting stuff you've ever seen, with some of the best like desperation counters from Mayu Iwatani to like try and barely, put away this monster who's just destroying her. Just an absolute war. I love this match, and I hope we get another one. Just so good. In second place, I have Naito versus Okada from Wrestle Kingdom Night 2. I was shocked when people after these shows were saying they thought some people were saying they thought Okada versus Ibushi was the better match. This one to me was just so incredibly dramatic, from the Stardust press to, this incredible moment that was the finish. For anyone who doesn't think that this wasn't an incredible moment, look how mad people were that Kenta came out later and ruined the moment. Naito winning was just absolutely amazing. This match was incredible. And in first place, I guess everything I picked was from pre-COVID, even though there were a lot of matches that I considered post-COVID. Match of the year was Kenny Omega and Hangman Page versus the Young Bucks from AEW Revolution. Just one of the best tag matches I've ever seen. Maybe the best tag match I've ever seen. I don't know. If you like this style of match, I can't imagine there being a better match. The only possible flaw I could come up with is that the finish was never in doubt to me, although for a lot of people seem to think that the Young Bucks were going to win. But this was just the peak of what the AEW or the Young Bucks, that Kenny Omega style of match can be. Just incredible. And really great announcing, too.
I will give you the possible flaw. I hate the fucking we don't want to do wrestling moves on our opponents in a wrestling match shit. That's like my least favorite wrestling storyline. They did the same thing in New Japan the year before, and it was probably not as bad here as it was during that the New Japan tag, but I hate that storyline. So there's my flaw. Suit, what are your picks for match of the year?
Match of the year, number 3, I have Hiromu Takahashi versus Will Ospreay from January 4th, Wrestle Kingdom Night 1. Great comeback for Hiromu, never lost a step. It was a nice button on Will Ospreay's great 2019 that he could come into Wrestle Kingdom and just finish off the fiscal year, for lack of a better term, with a great match at Wrestle Kingdom. And yeah, just a sign of things to come for both guys because they've both been very great. Match number 2, second place, Kenny Omega and Hangman Page versus the Young Bucks. As someone who's unintentionally ended up following Hangman's career, I didn't see this guy in Ring of Honor in 2014 and be like, oh, that guy's a blue chipper, but I saw him and I've seen him grow, and to see him end up as the star of this match, which is insane with the 3 guys that are in it with him, is just, it's cool to see. And it's cool to see how over he was, and hopefully how over he'll still be. And, I'm excited to see where he goes. And then, the match was it was fantastic. And if you follow these guys from New Japan to AEW and you were invested in it, then there's not too much better than that you'll see, I think. And then number 1, this is going to be funny coming from me who was just talking about investment. Number 1 is Toryumon Generation versus RED from Final Gate 2020, December 20th, the Unit Disbands match. I had just started watching Dragon Gate like a month or two before, so I had no like. I didn't have any of the context of Toryumon generation. Like, I just knew Toryumon were the guys who started, the whole Dragon system, and RED are these scumbag heels. Two of them are younger than me, just ready to tear the whole thing down. And I've been wanting to get into Dragon Gate for a long time because they talk about like how, like Dragon Gate fans talk about how like they do drama better than almost any other wrestling company on earth. And to have that hype pay off in this scenario where at the end of that match, Dragon Kid's his mask torn off. SB Kento with the SB shooter locked on. Everybody gets held back. And it just paid off all of that hype. Like, I'm all in now on Dragon Gate, and it's because of this match. Toryumon Generation versus RED, first place. Match of the year for me.
Alrighty, so the winner here was Naito versus Okada by a very wide margin here. 81 points, 13 first place votes. Second place, Kenny Omega and Adam Page against Nick and Matt Jackson from Revolution had 41 points and 3 first place votes. So this was the second biggest margin of victory for any match we've had so far in the 4 years of the awards. Third place, Go Shiozaki versus Sugera from Noah, 34 points for 3 first place votes. Fourth place, Go versus Nakajima from Noah, 20 points for 3 first place votes. And fifth place, the RED versus Toryumon Unit Must Disband match with 19 points and 2 first place votes. The Patreon, pretty similar. The only difference is, again, not as high on AEW, I guess. Naito versus Okada with an even more overwhelming win on the Patreon side with 107 points in first place. Then Shiozaki versus Nakajima, second place for 29 points, and Shiozaki versus Sugera in third place with 17 points. So those two flip-flop as well. Finally, we're at Wrestler of the Year here, our final category. So for this one, pretty simple for me. I went with the 3 top champions in Japan who I thought all had outstanding years, and really this was a really, really close award for me. I thought all 3 of these guys were awesome. Third place goes Shiozaki and Noah. I'm sure many of you are going to have him much higher, so I'm not going to go too long on him, but he had an outstanding year as GHC heavyweight champion and really just like the best run of his career and revitalized Noah, especially among Western fans, like people have talked about. Second place, Tetsuya Endo. I just thought he did an amazing job as KOD champion. Just really, has had a great run with that title and, really brought like a lot of my interest back in DDT when it had been wavering a little bit early in the year. I wasn't as big on the Masaru Tanaka stuff as some other people were, but I just thought Endo was an incredible champion and just had a, really, really strong second half of the year. And first place, I went with Tetsuya Naito, for reasons other people have kind of covered, but, with talking about him earlier. But I thought his G1 was awesome. I didn't hate the Evil Feud at all. I actually liked it a lot. And, the stuff at the start of the year, I mean, just not just the Okada match, which is one of my favorite matches of all time, but the Kenta Feud was awesome. And as I talked about a lot in my ebook profile for the Voice of Wrestling New Japan ebook, which also put up as a column, I just think he was, his year was hurt by COVID, that's for sure. I mean, everything was hurt by COVID. But I think he was the perfect guy to have in there as a champion during COVID because, the message of, we're waiting together for this to be over, calm down, tranquilo. I mean, it really does fit with his overall message, as a wrestler. And, he mopped up the year-end awards in Japan. I mean, not just the Tokyo Sports MVP, but he's apparently way ahead in the Weekly Pro Wrestling MVP vote, which is a fan vote. So, if you look at these shows in the crowd, I mean, most of the people there always seem to be really strong, like really into Naito, holding up the Naito towels and stuff. So, I think there's very little evidence that no matter what anyone listening to this might think of Naito's year, I think he very much remained very popular and helped carry the company through what was a very difficult time. So, I went with him as Wrestler of the Year here. And I should mention, too, Wrestler of the Year, For people who don't know, it's supposed to be the mix of in-ring, but also drawing power, star power, importance to the promotion, MVP quality, and other intangible factors. And the crowd he drew, I mean, the drawing power stuff is not going to be as big of a deal this year because of COVID. But pre-COVID, I mean, that crowd that he and Kenta did, over 11,000 people at Osaka-jo Hall was by far the biggest crowd New Japan's ever done for a B show like New Beginning in Osaka, which, I think that's a way bigger accomplishment than I think people even gave him credit for there. So, Suit, what do you have here for a Wrestler of the Year?
For Wrestler of the Year, number 3, I went with The Gamer. I feel like, I've lauded over his tag team run. He had a lot of sneaky good single stuff this year. I don't even think anybody's brought up the match with Pac, the Iron Man match. He had the first good empty arena match this year against Sammy Guevara for the AAA mega heavyweight title. I think that was the first show post-COVID. So he had that, and then throughout the year just doing trio stuff with the Young Bucks, 8-man tag stuff with Hangman, his single stuff at the end of the year. I think he's just been a constant solid in the upper mid-card, and now that he's got the world title, I expect that to continue in the main event in 2021. Second place, I went with Hiromu Takahashi. He's just been my highlight of New Japan from the start of the year through the empty arena stuff to now. I mean, you could basically just pick anything you want. The Ospreay match, the Ishii match, the Desperado match. It's all been great, and he's been my number 1 in New Japan for a while. So I'm excited to see him and Ishimori on Tuesday. Yeah, on Tuesday.
If he beats you, okay.
Okay.
Just saying.
And then number 1 for my Wrestler of the Year, this guy has been the MVP of his promotion. I think he has been the template of what a babyface world champion in a promotion should be. My number 1 is Jon Moxley. From the Jericho feud to the Brian Cage feud to the Brody Lee feud to what else? Okay, the MJF stuff wasn't great, but the match ended up being pretty good. And then the Omega stuff at the end of the year. He has been if every babyface champion was this and not the, hey, I'm going to do open challenges because we can't think of anything kind of babyface champion, I'd be a lot happier. I think Moxley put AEW on his back through a really tough time. All of his matches were close to notebook level, if not almost there, in the 3.5, 3 3/4, 4-star range. And yeah, I just think he's been fantastic on the mic. So just overall, Jon Moxley, my Wrestler of the Year.
Alrighty, Mongo, Wrestler of the Year.
Okay, number 3 I guess I'm picking up where Suit left off. I have Jon Moxley at number 3. For many of the same reasons, even though I don't have him quite as high. I think he was the perfect babyface, but babyface with an edge champion and to start the year challenger. But just great promos up and down. Not match of the year level matches, but still really good to great title defenses. And even that win over Jericho I thought was a tremendous match, and especially really fantastic finishes, just really memorable finishes to his matches, like the Brody Lee match with that choke and the stuff with Kingston. I thought he was just really, really good at putting together dramatic finishes. And again, he kept interest in a promotion that was going through, a time that, was completely uncharted and still a new promotion. And he managed to make this new title seem important. Second place, I have Mayu Iwatani. Also, a promotion that was going through very turbulent times, and I was just amazed by her performances this year. She was a really tremendous champion and really kept my own personal interest in Stardom. Where with, Moxley and Omega, I kind of have an idea of how business is for AEW and how they personally may have moved ratings or may have, possibly influenced pay-per-view buys or whatever. I don't really know how Stardom is doing right now or was doing at the end of her reign, but I guess it's good that they're going to run a scaled down Budokan to, in March, if that's even allowed to happen at this point, who knows? But I thought she was tremendous in the ring and just like as champion, just a really great year for her. And in first place, I have the gamer Kenny Omega. I've already said why I thought he was great in the ring, and as everything else in wrestling, I thought, I mean, just business wise, he got twice as many people to watch TNA one week than would ever dare watch TNA in the year of our Lord 2020. I like whenever he was in a big match on a pay-per-view, it seemed to mean something. He seemed to do better than average quarters, and was in shows where there'd be a big Moxley match and a big Kenny segment, it seemed like Kenny would win out most weeks in terms of who had more viewers. Just overall made those tag titles something really important. I know some people weren't too high on SCU and thought they were just kind of placeholder champions, and they were, but Kenny and Hangman made those belts really important. And like Suit said, Kenny was maybe the MVP of American wrestling in the lockdown era. That match with Sammy Guevara was tremendous, and he was just doing a lot of things. He was all over that TV, and I mean, it was a really important time for that company because you were missing a lot of people, and Kenny really stepped up. So I think from a business standpoint and an in-ring standpoint, it was great.
TJ, Wrestler of the Year.
For Wrestler of the Year, my third pick is Hiromu Takahashi. Like, I voted for him in Most Outstanding for my second place, so obviously in-ring was great all year. But I'm putting him in MVP because he was the focus throughout the year for New Japan. He retired Liger, had 2 great title matches to kick off the year, had his great New Japan Cup run in once things returned. I was one of the few people that did watch that video that y'all mentioned earlier about him ahead of the Evil feud, and I thought I think his feud with Evil was better than Naito's feud with Evil, even though I enjoyed both. And then his best Super Junior was just great, and as I mentioned before, he had basically everyone's best match. I think the only 2 matches of his best Super Junior I didn't put on my spreadsheet was up there on my list, and Cho, which I was very down compared to many people, but yeah, he was like, I'm not as down on New Japan as many people are. I think it could be better, but it was fine. But he was one of the few things that I did get really invested in this year from New Japan. It was really just him and Tekker, so he's kind of the reason I picked him. That's kind of the reason I picked him for third, is because not just me, it seemed like even people on this call, he was one of the reasons people were invested in New Japan this year. My number 2 pick was Tetsuya Endo. I thought he was consistent throughout the year, but never really had a match of the year contender other than his match with Tanaka. But even then, like, it was like a lower end kind of thing. Even so, he was a focus of the promotion throughout the year, winning just about everything in DDT you can, and it, like, at least felt like that. And I thought his title reign was very strong, and they used him as a catalyst to push guys like Higuchi and Ueno, who I think are going to have great 2021. So just for importance of the promotion, I think Endo was very important for DDT in 2020. And my number 1 pick was Go Shiozaki. I thought Go's title reign was one of the best, if not the best title reign I've gotten to witness in real time. It's pretty much between Go, Okada's long reign, and Takeda's like Freedom Big Japan dual run. I thought all of his matches were at minimum good, but like literally the only matches of his actual title matches that weren't on my spreadsheet were the Saito match, which I still thought was really good. I enjoyed it a lot, and the Marufuji match. But if you listen to my podcast, I'm very down on Marufuji a lot, even though he had a couple good matches and then one, but whatever. But I don't know. Dude's going to show up on three times on my match of the year list, and it feels like there's a renewed interest in Noah this year, and his title reign and just in feud with Nakajima in general. I think he's a large part of it. So all things considered, I think he is a clear MVP for me.
Alrighty. Harley, your Wrestler of the Year picks.
For third place, I went Hiromu Takahashi. He's the face of a junior division while also being a part of one of the better heavyweight title feuds this year in New Japan. He's also elevated the junior title to a point where now it's going to semi-main event at a Tokyo Dome show. And I know that this year, again, it doesn't mean as much as other years, but it's still a massive accomplishment, I think, for him. Second place, I stand by all my previous picks, except for this one. I don't know what I was thinking here. I think I was just blinded by the love I have for this man. I went Ishii again. I don't know why. He was my most outstanding wrestler of the year. I think here I probably should have put Naito, but I think...
Harley, I will change that vote for you if you want.
Can you do that?
I can do whatever the fuck I want. It's my awards.
Yeah. Well, can you do that? I think it was a mix between not wanting to look like a homer, not wanting to... and also, you can't really judge his drawing ability for 9 months of this year as well. And I don't think New Japan also helped him as well. I mean, they put him in the worst block, even though I had him averaging 4-star matches in that B block for the G1. So yeah, I don't know why I went with Ishii.
But sir, now you went with Naito.
No, I went with Naito.
There you go.
So that leads me to my number one. And
people are probably going to think I seriously did do that. It actually doesn't change. It doesn't change the order at all. It actually Naito still finishes in the exact same spot. But I went and added your three.
Good.
Yeah, I went and added your 3 points just because I thought that was funny.
Oh, yeah, good. As long as that doesn't...
It doesn't change it. No, it puts him a little closer to second, but it doesn't actually put him into second.
Okay, well, I'm glad then. At first place, I went with Kenny Omega. I mean, he had a great year with the tag titles. I really elevated those. He's a ratings drawer. The end of the year especially, he brought some buzz to Impact. He brought some buzz to AEW. I thought his heel turn was executed pretty perfectly to the point where Dave Meltzer didn't know he was a face or a heel. But yeah, I guess people have already spoken about Kenny Omega enough. But yeah, he was my wrestler of the year this year.
What do you have here, Gerard? Gerard?
Number 3, I have Mayu Iwatani. As Mongo said, she carried the promotion during some tumultuous times, and as they were trying to create some new stars. And actually, one of my favorite moments of the year is at the No People Gate show when she decides to roll down the stairs of the Korakuen stands. Number 2, I have Hiromu Takahashi. I mean, just an incredible year. Arguably the most charismatic wrestler out there today. I mean, so much has already been said about him already. And number 1, for me, Go Shiozaki. Yes, I also had him in my worst match of the year, but I thought his highs were incredible. Like the whole, his arms about to fall off story that he carried from the late summer through the N1 and everything was just incredible. He carried himself like an ace the entire time with that new outfit that he debuted all the way back in January. So it's just an incredible year for him, and he's my number 1.
And Go Shiozaki did indeed win. He actually won this by the biggest margin we've ever had. It was only 12 points, but this award every year for us has been really close. It was 7 points, Okada over Naito in 2017, 4 points, Takeda over Tanahashi in 2018, and then only 3 points in 2019, Ospreay over Okada. But this was our biggest margin ever. So Go Shiozaki, 78 points, 9 first-place votes in first place. John Moxley in second, 66 points, 10 first-place votes. Tetsuya Naito now 63 points with the addition of Harley's 3 points that I talked him into doing. But yeah, 63 points, 4 first-place votes, still finishes third. The Gamer, Kenny Omega, finishes fourth, 52 points, 5 first-place votes. And Hiromu Takahashi does sneak into fifth here, 30 points, 1 first-place vote, and quite a big drop from 5th to 6th after that. So the Patreon, very similar, except swapping second and third. So Go Shiozaki still wins with 87 points. Naito finishes a much closer second with 79 points, and Moxley finishes well back in third with 39 points, but still pretty impressive considering I got the vibe throughout the entire awards for the Patreon side that my patrons don't like AEW that much. So Moxley must have been really good to break through with them into third here. But yeah, that'll do it, folks, and we've gone pretty long, so let's do some very quick plugs. Suit, go ahead. What do you want to plug here?
at Suit Williams on Twitter, and the Smark Sports Podcast on iTunes and wherever you get your podcasts.
Awesome. Mongo? Mongo? Are you there, Mongo?
I guess I had myself muted when Mongo_ebooks on Twitter, and the Monumental Podcast, wherever you find your podcast, the one that's about wrestling, not the one that's about real estate. We recently did a really incredible interview with Peli Primo. If you like Golden Age ROH, definitely go listen to that.
Alrighty. TJ?
Yeah, so if you want to follow me, you can do so at ASPIR_. And do the One Wrestling Podcast. This week, we're going to be talking about all of the shows from this past weekend. Just general overall thoughts. Both All Japan Korakuens, DDT, probably Tokyo Joshi, at least Wrestle Kingdom, both nights. We'll see anything else, but those are like the main topics. So check us out if you want to watch some more wrestling. Me and my co-host Caitlin. So if you want to get a female voice in wrestling, come check us out.
Harley?
No real need to follow me on Twitter, but buy the ebook and read my reviews.
There you go. Gerard?
At Gerard Di Trolio on Twitter, although I don't really tweet much these days, but please read my All Japan coverage at voicesofwrestling.com. I'm still doing it even after all of this, although I've been somewhat reinvigorated by the first couple shows of the year, so I'm still going to be sticking with it.
It was two really good main events. I mean, I would have to say.
For sure.
4 stars and 4.5. I mean, a really good start to the year. But I thought the 2 shows last year were really good too, and then they fell off a cliff. So I guess we'll have to say.
Yeah.
Of course, you can follow us on Twitter at Wrestling Omakase, Wrestling When I'm Fit. Check out the Wrestling Omakase Patreon, patreon.com/Wrestling Omakase. It'll be $5. You can listen to the Wrestle Kingdom live coverage at the end of each show, which will be kicking off like the moment the show ends. And even if you're not up and to watch it live, you'll get early access to that coverage. You can listen to it on demand on YouTube. And before I put it up as the next free episode, which will be next week's episode, when if you're not a patron, you'll be able to listen to our Wrestle Kingdom reviews combined next Saturday. It's probably when that'll go up. So that'll be coming up in the near future. Of course, check out the Voice of Wrestling New Japan ebook. I wrote a ton of profiles on there. A very long rebuttal of people who hate evil. So check that one out. My Naito profile is up on the website too. So just a ton of really cool stuff in that ebook. And I put together the top 25 New Japan matches of the year too. So, there's a lot of cool stuff in that ebook. And that'll do it, folks. Thank you as always for listening. And I will see you next time.